You're broadcasting.
Great, thank you. All right, so here we are at the regular meeting of the Town Council, Tuesday, September 22nd. Margot, are you ready to take it away?
Yes, sir. For the benefit of the public, I will take another roll call. Councilwoman Cotton.
Present.
Thank you. Councilman Elms.
Present.
Councilwoman Foster.
Here.
Councilman Iannicone.
Here.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Here.
Councilman Silva.
Present.
Thank you. Council President Armington.
Here.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's start off with a moment of silence. And now we will move to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America.
and to the
And the
republic
republic
for which
for which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and
Justice for all.
Okay, a couple of things. Before we get started, please be aware that public comment during the public hearing portions of this meeting will be moderated through the Zoom app. At the appropriate time, members of the public wishing to speak should indicate so by raising his or her hand in the app. You will find the raise your hand icon at the bottom left side of your screen. You may also raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone. When it is your turn, the moderator will send a signal through the app and ask that you unmute yourself so that you may be heard. I also wanted to announce that with the introduction of ordinances 29 and 30 this evening, resolution number R-128-2020 is to be tabled until the October 13th meeting. So if I could please have a motion to table that resolution.
I'll make a motion to table that resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Cotton?
Yes.
Councilman Elms?
yes.
Councilman Foster?
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone?
Yes.
Councilman Mayer?
Yes.
Councilman Silva?
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Okay, resolution R-128-2020 will be tabled to October 13th. There are 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. Unless a member of council would like to discuss one or both separately, I would ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Councilwoman Cotton?
Yes.
Councilman Elms?
Yes.
Councilman Foster?
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Yes.
Councilman Silva?
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Motion carries. At this time, I'll open the floor for a public hearing on any matter. Again, please raise your hand in the app to indicate that you would like to speak. If you've joined the meeting via telephone, kindly press *9. State your name and address and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Be advised that any derogatory comments targeting members of council and/or administration may be ruled out of order.
Okay. The first hand I see raised is Nathan Umbriak. Mr. Umbriak, please unmute yourself and then state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening, Town Council members and Mayor. Nathan Umbriak, 1 Randolph Drive, Morristown. I'm just going to touch upon the same thing that I touched upon quite some time ago regarding Shady Lane. Our family remains concerned about the sober living facility in our quiet, close-knit community of Franklin Street, Randolph Drive, Woodley Road, and Shady Lane. Despite our neighborhood's concern and your commitment to zoning requirements, the owner of 1 Shady Lane was able to move forward and obtain state licensure on April 22nd. They've obviously moved ahead and are operating a housing facility in a residential zone. My question was and remains, who is excuse me, who is managing oversight of this property. I do not know if zoning violations have been addressed, but the owners continue to collect rent. Whatever violations have been cited certainly hasn't deterred current or previous owners. Thank you. And if I could, while I have the floor, my wife wants to add something.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is Jessica Umbriak, also at 1 Randolph Drive. And I'd just like to point out that Nathan read almost verbatim what he said at the April 28th Town Council meeting. Nothing has changed, and if anything, it is more relevant today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.
Okay, the next person on the list is Rebecca.
Carter?
I don't have a name. Would you please state your full name and address for the record?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Hello, my name is Rebecca Carger. I live at 54 Bud Street in Morristown. And thank you for your time tonight. Slavery wasn't fully abolished in 1865. In 2020, you can still be forced into slavery if you have been convicted of a crime. The 13th Amendment reads, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. I see this as a violation of human rights. It is at the center of the current mass incarceration epidemic in the United States. Some states have begun to work to amend the 13th Amendment to not only remove this exception, but clarify that slavery and involuntary servitude should be illegal, including in cases of criminal conviction. These states include Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. Morristown is an important town in our state. We have the chance right now to join other important towns and cities, including Jersey City, Patterson, Atlantic City, Hoboken, and Roselle, in showing our support for abolishing slavery in all forms in New Jersey. The goal beyond this is to have the question posed to the public through a ballot question in November 2021. The resolutions are being proposed in the State Assembly and Senate through ACR 145 and SCR 96, respectively. This important legislative change must be viewed as a moral issue. There will be, of course, financial changes that ultimately may actually benefit society and lead to better restoration for those who have committed crimes and the victims of those crimes. But none of that can happen if we still have a law on the books that allows the immoral act of slavery to continue. New Jersey was the last northern state to abolish slavery back in the 1800s. Now we can be on the leading end of abolishing slavery in all forms now and forever. I want to personally thank my councilperson, Sandy Mayer, for helping to bring this issue forward to her council partners, Council President Stephen Armington, and Mayor Tim Doherty for giving me time to speak with them about this issue, and Dennis Febo of Jersey City, who first brought this attention to our town, to the attention of our town, and who has done a lot of work to make this change happen in our state. So I'm asking the Morristown Council members to please discuss and support a resolution to amend the 13th in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you, Rebecca.
The next hand is John Williams. Mr. Williams, will you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is John Williams. I'm at 1 Washington Avenue in Morristown. And my comment relates to the M Station pilot agreement. I think that was on the agenda for introduction for first reading tonight. And I just want to make two comments about the process for evaluating the proposed pilot agreement. And I'm wondering if the council or the town would make available the financial analyses performed by the financial consultants, and also the redevelopment agreement with the M Station developer I submit is unnecessary to evaluate any pilot proposal. So I'm wondering if the town would make those two documents available before voting on any pilot agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. The next person on the list is, I don't want to butcher your name, Thaddeus. If you would state your full name for the record and your address, and unmute yourself.
Okay, can you all hear me, first of all?
Yes, we can.
All right. Unfortunately, he came up as being muted. My name is Thaddeus Kobalars. I live at 30 Altamont Court in Morristown, New Jersey. And Tim, your constituents on Altamont Court need your help. The help constitutes several requests. And if you're unable to accommodate my request because of lack of resources, then I also ask the council to provide ordinances so he may do so. Altamont Court is plagued by rats. For instance, a dead rat was recently found in one of my neighbor's yards. Apparently the rat baits provided by my neighbor's pest control service did its job. Live rats are also seen in my neighborhood, crossing streets and in the yards. A pest control technician, the Altamont Court rat problem should not be a new revelation, because one of my neighbors had back in July contacted Tim, your office, and later the Morristown Health Department about this issue. A pest control technician had indicated that the problem arose because the restaurant shut down in March. He surmised that the rats began foraging for food and found a supply in the overflowing dumpsters behind the backyards of the Altamont Court North Side residences. Consequently, he believes a new colony or colonies of rats have formed nearby. These dumpsters belong to the apartment building facing Elm Street, which is directly behind our backyard. The backyard's on the north side, as I said. I understand that a health department official is dispatched to contact the apartment management so that the dumpsters would no longer overflow and thereby provide that the lids would be closed. Unfortunately, this has not been in compliance. The dumpsters still overflow with garbage, keeping the lids open. We have pictures of the overflowing dumpsters, and they've been provided to the health department. Please, we cannot allow Morristown to have the same rat problem of New York City, where Central Park has been taken over by the rats. The apartment building was duly warned about the overflowing dumpsters. I think that they should now be fined. This will underscore the municipality's determination for compliance to not have dumpsters overflow. If their quantity of dumpsters is inadequate, the apartment building should be obliged to acquire more dumpsters at their own expense. Lastly, I request that any facility in Morristown which uses dumpsters should require to enlist licensed pest control company to periodically service and control the rats and to eliminate the rat colonies. Rats present a serious health issues. Families of small children have been attracted to Altamont Court because it's a quiet, dead-end street. If a rat enters a home, there exists a danger of its biting a child. Although it has not been diagnosed in New Jersey, there has been incidences of bubonic plague in California. Please indulge me as I repeat my 3 requests. Invoke a fine on the Elm Street apartment buildings owners or condominium association, and the building being just north of Altamont Court, for non-compliance of the complaint of overflowing dumpsters. Number 2, order the same organization to acquire at their expense additional dumpsters to accommodate their quantity of garbage and thereby eliminate the overflow problem. And number 3, and finally, require that any Morristown facility having dumpsters enlist a continue a service of a licensed pest control company to prevent this problem of rats. If ordinances don't exist to enforce these 3 requests, council members, please institute these ordinances. If the ordinances do exist, Tim, please enforce them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kobalars. The next person on the list is Evan. If you will unmute yourself and state your full name and address for the record.
Yep. My full name is Evan Harlan-Putis, and I live at 18 Arrowhead Road, Morristown. I'm a student at Morristown High School, and I'm also the student government organization president at our high school. I strongly support the agenda to remove the exception in the 13th Amendment. As I'm sure many of us are aware of, this loophole is a modern form of slavery. Although it certainly affects people of all races and all socioeconomic backgrounds, this loophole has disproportionately afflicted minority and impoverished communities all over our country. The statement slavery should be illegal in all cases shouldn't be controversial. As a more affluent county, Morris County has the ability to set some precedent against this horrid exception. It has the chance to effectuate change that would hopefully spread to other counties and to other states throughout our country. Progress is made in steps, and this would certainly be a powerful one to take in the fight for equality. The 13th Amendment is a blemish on our country's history, and I strongly support this resolution to remove the exception in this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. The next person on the list is TJG and Alba. Will you please unmute yourself, state your full name and address for the record?
Good evening. My name is TJ George. I'm at 180 Franklin Street. I am the nearest neighbor to One Shady Lane. Their backyard fence is about 30 feet from the balcony of our bedroom. I would like to describe an incident that occurred last week. We have our vegetable garden in that area, and when they throw garbage over the fence, that's usually where it accumulates. So last week we found a vaping device, and we decided to investigate if there was more garbage behind the arbor vitae. When we looked back there, we found a syringe, which we had the Morristown Police remove. I've never lived in any place where neighbors throw garbage over the fence. These residents don't seem to be respecting the neighbors or the neighborhood. And I'm not sure they deserve or even want the benefit of the doubt from the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. George. The next person on the list is Peter Sudall. Please state your full name and address for the record.
Sure. It's Peter Sudall and 16 Catherine Lane. I'm coming here again for the third meeting in a row here to discuss the possibility of updating our chicken ordinances here in town. And as of our last meeting here, I was tasked with having as many people as I could contact the town to show their support. And I know that you've seen quite a few emails come in. And one very important one came in today from the head of the Sustainable Monroe Project down in Monroe Township. So I'm not sure if Mr. Armington and Ms. Mayer have seen that email, but I urge you to read that. So maybe we need to look at this in a different light. We see that the town is working very hard to keep their businesses and restaurants open so we can continue to patronize them and, protect the livelihoods of the people that own those restaurants. But at this point, I'm wondering what we can do to help protect some of our livelihoods, those of us who don't own these restaurants. My reality that I wake up to every day, I work for a commercial audiovisual company, and the bulk of my business relies on people working in office buildings. And as we have seen, a lot of people have not returned back to the office. And if that trend continues, I stand a very real danger of losing my job a second time due to the coronavirus. So having the peace of mind knowing that I have some hens in my backyard that provide meals for my family would give me a little bit of peace of mind knowing that if things went south again and the state shuts us down, we'd be okay. And this really does benefit the whole town. And I need you to understand that, that these hens are our pets. But if a handful of people around town have these chickens, there is a surplus of eggs. And since we cannot sell them, everybody around us will get free, nutritious eggs, and it will do our part to help fight back against commercial farms that we're forced to buy our food from. And I feel we should have the opportunity to provide our own food and to show our children where food comes from. And I know, again, if you would please read that email from the Monroe Township, he will explain to you that they've had no issues since they've been about 1.5 years into their 2-year pilot program where they're testing the waters to see if they do have any of these concerns that the towns are concerned about. And the fact is that they're not. So the concerns that I've heard from the council are very easily addressed, and they're answered very easily if we could just have a conversation about it. I've also reached out to Senator Cory Booker. He is well aware that our food system is completely broken, and helping to fight back against that is to allow people to make their own food, to raise their own food, to grow their own food. And I'm hoping to hear back from him, but he's trying to push legislation to help us fight back against these farms. I know I've made very reasonable suggestions, and I know you've heard from a lot of people in town, and I'd just like to know when we can start our discussion about what we can do about these 40-year-old laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sudol. The next person with their hand raised is Jay Delaney. Mr. Delaney, if you'll state your name and address for the record, and unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yep. Jay Delaney with the law firm of Lindaberry, McCormick, Estabrook, and Cooper. On behalf of the Famished Frog, just wanted to enter an appearance on Resolution R128 2020. I understand you carried it. Want to let the record know I was here and consent to it with the condition, of course, that you'll be discussing ordinance 029 and 030. And I want to thank Margot Kay, who's been very helpful to my client. And when those two ordinances come up, I'll speak along with my client. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney.
The ordinances are up for introduction. There's no opportunity for public input. So I think if Mr. Delaney wants to speak about the ordinances, now is his opportunity to speak about them.
Mr. Delaney.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. I sent an email to Margot Kay, your town clerk, along with my client. And the only comments we had, we thought they were very good. We were most appreciative. On 029, my client made a notation. One of the words should be outside. And he sent that in the email. That's in the 029, where it talked about all tables and chairs within the establishment. Obviously, we want to talk about being outside. And then also, with respect to 029 and 030, he sent an email, as did I, about removing the furniture or storing the furniture. Obviously, that wouldn't apply to my client's private property, and that's been set forth in an email from me and from my client, and hopefully we can deal with that at the appropriate time. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you.
I don't know whether my client is on, whether he wants to say a word or two to thank the council. If Mr. Beers is on, maybe we can recognize him, and he wanted to thank the council.
Mr. Beers might want to wait until the applicable resolution comes up before the council, since that will be likely tabled at this point.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Council President. He did thank the council and thank Margaret Kay in his email. So it is both in writing, and at some point he would like to thank the council verbally. Thank you, Council President.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. The next person is Debbie Deb. If you would please unmute yourself and state your full name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Debbie Crump. I'm at 13 Shady Lane in Morristown. I'm concerned about number 1 Shady Lane. For 2 weeks now, there have been multiple cars parked on the street in front of 1 Shady Lane in the evening. I've seen women pull up to park after 9 p.m. Number 1, is the house co-ed? Number 2, do they have a curfew? And number 3, these cars don't have a sticker, so where's the parking authority? Also, what are you going to do about the drug paraphernalia? The George family reported it by email on September 17th. The syringe was found in their garden. The hazmat team named ACV Enviro of Rahway cleaned 1 Shady Lane on July 17th and 18th. This was reported to you on July 19th by Lauren Bass. We were told the city can't do anything unless the house presented a safety hazard. Well, drug paraphernalia and coronavirus is a safety hazard. And I'd like to know what the town intends to do about the sober house at 1 Shady Lane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Deborah. The next person is a number 720795. If you'll please state your full name and address for the record. Unmute yourself first and then state your full name and address for the record. Seven two zero 795.
Do you have, this is Bonnie Gregg from 15 Shady Lane. Do you still have me, I raised my hand, but I have
Yes,
three.
we can hear you.
Okay, because I have 3 different devices and I didn't know which to use. Anyway.
Understood.
I've been a resident of Shady Lane for 40 years, and this is a continuing problem, 1 Shady Lane. I had a birthday recently, was very happy about that, but I thought one of the best birthday presents I could have gotten was from the town, something to actually say that something's being done about 1 Shady Lane, like people are actually being taken to court or being moved out. I was kind of hoping there wouldn't be any of those people hanging around. Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm repeating myself, but what I want to say is just communications and conversations are really not enough. What we really need is to have somebody do something to get rid of this situation. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gregg. The next person on the list is Emma Hawks. Ms. Hawks, if you'll unmute yourself, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Emma Hawks. I'm at 6 Robert Road, Mendon, New Jersey. Thank you for your attention tonight. So I, like others tonight, wanted to just take this opportunity to state my full support for amending the 13th Amendment and fully abolishing slavery. And as a resident of a neighboring town of Morris County, I really just want to take this opportunity to highlight the opportunity that Morristown as a town has in this chance. So like any community, Morristown doesn't exist in a vacuum, and the decisions that you make as a town don't influence only your immediate residents, but of course all of the towns around you. So I just wanted to take this opportunity and say, please really do consider this, because you have a really great opportunity here to make a positive and lasting impact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawks. The next person on the list is Alba Rossi George. Ms. Rossi George, if you will unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Alba Rossi George. I live at 180 Franklin Street. I'd like to discuss the noise that the residents of Shady Lane have been making since moving in. My property, as my husband just described, borders that of Shady Lane. Our bedrooms directly face the backyard, where the residents of Shady Lane hang out until late at night, any day of the week, and where they speak extremely loudly, scream, and play loud music. During the day, the situation is not much better. Whenever they're outside, they make considerable noise. For example, today, like many other times, I could not keep my windows open while lecturing because they were outside screaming, cursing, and chatting very loudly. They also congregate for group therapy. I don't know how many of them there are. And if I'm sitting outside, I have to go inside my house. Our quality of life has deteriorated since this commercial business has been installed behind my house. This is a residential area. And as such, it makes a halfway house, which I remind you is a for-profit business, unsuitable for the zoning of this neighborhood. because of the situation that my husband TJ George mentioned before, I have reached a point where now I am really fed up. And also, one of my neighbors asked if it's a co-ed house. I hear women there early in the morning at 7 o'clock, chatting very loudly outside. At night, they're still there. So yes, this is a co-ed house. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Rossi George.
It's Dr. Rossi George.
My apologies, Dr. Rossi George. The next person on the list is Dylan Quattro. If you'll unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please. Ms. Quattro?
Yes, this is Mike Quattro at 164 Franklin Street. I want to speak about two things. Shady Lane is a part of it. I've heard a lot of complaints, and I believe based on emails that have been flying around, I think the mayor's going to address some of the neighborhood's concerns later tonight. But what I want to talk about is not just Shady Lane, just the experience of the neighborhood with that, but also my experience with trying to get the police to issue a summons for violating the noise ordinance at the hospital. And to me, both of these issues, okay, kind of went to the boiling point, I would say, from what I think is a difference in perspective. Based on my experience with dealing with people from the town for the last 4 years or so, I think that the elected officials and, you know, a lot of the town employees, including the police, tend to look at things from their perspective instead of from the perspective of the residents. And, you know, for example, in Shady Lane, that house 2 years ago was a glorified lacrosse team fraternity, and getting that thing addressed was, you know, a marathon for the neighbors. And, you know, the situation now with this house is kind of the same thing. And we have the same problem all over town. You know, Franklin Corners is constantly under pressure from the 800-pound gorilla that is the hospital. And now, you know, these people are dropping another commercial property right smack in the neighborhood. And, you know, when I say hospital, it's a hospital, but it's not a hospital. It's a huge commercial operation that runs 24/7 and is part of a $3 billion corporation. That is our inconsiderate neighbor, okay? Now, I probably called in, and I didn't call all of them in. I know my neighbors called in some, but over the last 3 or 4 years, we've called in like 15 noise complaints. And this is a typical thing. I've gone out there in person and begged police to write a summons, and none of them would ever do it. And this thing boiled over on last Tuesday night, and I'm still not over it because it's just like a pattern from the town, okay? Now, I called in a complaint at 9:15. I'm not sure if anybody responded. I called again at 10. I went outside, I waited. It was a busy night. I waited until 10:25. Officer shows up. You know, the contractor told them they were going to leave in 15 minutes. They were there till almost midnight. And when I had a conversation with Lieutenant Tizo, you know, I was very disappointed in that conversation because he's defending the hospital, and I just think he had no respect for me. And part of that is from the police perspective. You know, it's a noise complaint. It's no big deal. We got better things to do. Well, I'm okay with that on the first 3 times we call, but on noise complaint number 15, it's no longer a noise complaint for me. From my perspective, a noise complaint starting Tuesday night is the end of the world. And me and the police department are on very different pages, right? And same thing with Shady Lane. Like my neighbors, you know, they asked politely 5 months ago, they were looking for help. I understand like the town has done things, but where the failure is, I think here, is the town has not communicated regularly with the neighborhood. And that's maybe the town administrator or our councilman dropping us a 5-minute email every week, every other week, what's going on. Maybe the mayor drops a line once a month to just let us know what's going on. And because this thing has been, on a slow simmer for 5 months, and then the syringe thing, now it's boiling. And let me give you an example, okay? When I say service to the community, I'm not looking for great service because I don't think anybody wants to pay for that in their taxes. But what I am looking for is good service. And you have a model employee, Fritz Roos. When I was talking to him on Wednesday, first, the guy calls me back in like 4 hours after I left him a voicemail. And while I'm talking to him, I was trying to get clarification on the special permit rule. And, that's another issue. But during this conversation, I mentioned to him, it's like, oh, by the way, I got into it with the police last night, and I'm sure half the police force by now thinks I'm a jerk. But if I really wanted to be a jerk, I could call in a noise complaint every day on the hospital because their trades start at 7 a.m. when they're doing a big project. And he's like, that's not right. And, this week I have to send them a memo because of that cogeneration project starting, and I'm going to add a paragraph to that memo outlining the noise ordinance and that they should not be working before 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, here's a guy who, realizes in 2 minutes he's on the phone with the resident who has a problem, and he doesn't make excuses. He doesn't dismiss it as no big deal because he thinks it's no big deal. He looks at the issue from this perspective. I'm the building official. This resident has a problem. Okay, what can I do in my role as the building official to help this guy? And I don't know why that's the people of the town, whether it's the patrol officers, Mr. Corcoran, Lieutenant Tizo, whoever it is, why everybody can't have that perspective when they're talking to a resident. Okay, and I hope the mayor has some good news for us on One Shady Lane. And just last thing, for those of you who, I have to thank the person who doesn't put the residents on video. For those of you who have seen the Twitter Read My Skype Room account, because I'm a 1 out of 10, like a step above a hostage video. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Quattro. The next person is Sophia Gonzalez. Ms. Gonzalez, if you'll unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, and first of all, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me on here. My name is Sophia Gonzalez. I live at 158 Western Avenue. I'm here in support of the previous statements made on the 13th Amendment. I'm a junior at Morristown High School, and I personally, living in such a diverse town, I've seen what it's like to live with a multicultural society in such a moderate town in New Jersey. As a child of 2 immigrant parents, I've seen diversity all over the world, and what really hits close to home is where Morristown isn't really taking as much of a stand as it should be on this. We are a very large town in northern New Jersey, and we have such a big impact, again, in previous statements on, on neighboring towns. So what I would like to do is just voice my support for this 13th Amendment. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. The next person is Ann Liz Doneguin. I hope I got your name close to right. If you will please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ann Elizabeth Doneguin. I live at 168 Franklin Street, and I just wanted to express my support for the other local residents who have spoken about One Shady Lane. I don't understand how this use has been allowed to continue as long as it has. And the recent incident with the finding of the syringe shows that the sober living isn't working. This isn't being a good neighbor, and that's not sober. And also, just on a different note, I didn't know that there had been a discussion regarding backyard chickens, but I'm totally in favor of allowing them, and I think it's a very wholesome use. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Natasha Dar. Ms. Dar, if you'll unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Natasha Dar. I live at 31 Maple Avenue in Morris Plains, and I attend Morristown High School. I'm a senior this year. The history of Morristown has been a large part of my education, and the extensive documentation of the legacy of slavery within this town and Morris County is horrific, abominable, and saddening. But this council and our community members have the power to remove the accept clause from the 13th Amendment and fix outdated legislation that has been ignored for far too long. The accept clause has bolstered mass incarceration and racial inequity, being at the root of systemic issues within our law. Being that there was once such a strong presence of slavery within Morris County, a resolution to amend the clause would be precedent-setting on a state and national level. New Jersey was the last northern state to abolish slavery. So let us not be the last state to end the federally sanctioned atrocities supported by the 13th Amendment, specifically the criminalization of African Americans in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dar. The next person on the list is Mr. Patrick Housel. If you'll unmute yourself and state your name and address to the record, please.
Hi, good evening. Patrick Housel, 172 Franklin Street in Morristown, New Jersey. So I'm here once again to voice my concerns about One Shady. This may be a bit of a rant, but I guess you guys get to deal with it once every 2 weeks. We get to deal with it every day. So we first came back to the council in April of this year when we heard that there was an application that had been filed with the state to open a sober living facility. We were told not to worry. They haven't submitted a zoning application. Then they moved in. They just moved in without even submitting a zoning application. We were told, don't worry, they'll be fined. That did nothing. Then now it's in the courts. Well, that's been pushed over 3 times. And a month ago, I raised concerns about the courts, their virtual nature, and the risk of coronavirus ramping back up into the fall as we return slowly back to our daily lives. The town council, and the town prosecutor is not doing anything to help push this issue or our neighborhood. And what I'm just getting more tired of is when I hear anecdotes from either those from the administration or associated that say, we have to follow the law. The town's hands are tied. All the while, all the concerns that we raised, they're coming true. We have public property that's been defamed. We have parking issues that have been referenced, and last week, the syringe. The only silver lining there is that it happened to show up in the only neighboring property that does not have multiple children under the ages of 10. The town isn't enforcing its laws. It's not enforcing parking. It's not enforcing parking at all. There's routinely 3 to 5 cars on a rotating basis that are always outside Shady Lane, and the town is doing nothing to make it hard to operate. I know that the parking authority's been there once and they've issued tickets once, but so what? They could issue tickets there every day. I've watched the parking authority drive by, flashlight in the car windows, and drive on by. So either A, they're not doing their job, or B, we're issuing permits to all of these rotating cars at a rate that's much higher than the norm for a single family neighborhood. The only person that's not following the law here is the owner. Dr. Hernando just collects his rent check every single month. It's an absolute disgrace that the town just continues to let this facility operate. If I opened my garage doors, started selling beer out of it, and called it a bar, you would shut it down. But for some reason, this commercial business is not being shut down. So I hope that there are more neighbors here to continue to make you listen to our gripes about what's going on, but it's an absolute disgrace of what's becoming of our neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Housel. The next person on the list is Aaliyah Masood. Ms. Masood?
Yes, hi.
Will you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Of course. Hi, my name is Aaliyah Masood, and I live on 6 Trutzler Drive in Morris Plains, New Jersey. I would like to state my full and unwavering support for the abolishment of the 13th Amendment. As an African-American high school female in the Morris School District, I should not live in fear. I'm not talking to convince you that the 13th Amendment is immoral and inhumane. I'm speaking with you because this can no longer be acceptable. No more excuses. My life depends on it.
Ms. Massoud, you're muted. Would you unmute yourself?
Did you not hear anything I just said? Sorry, I just spoke.
We heard your first statement and then you got muted, so
Okay.
We lost you.
I'll say it again. I basically was explaining that I'm supporting the abolishment of the 13th Amendment, as Rebecca Kay first mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. I stated that I am not going to live in fear anymore, and that New Jersey, the Morris County, is in a very specific position where they can be a leader in New Jersey just because of our economic support and our economic, like I said, our economic support. So yeah, I think it's in your hands, and there's going to be a lot of push for the abolishment of the 13th Amendment, because there are no more excuses. It's obviously inhumane, and my life should not be. I should not have to question whether I have the right to live because of an inhumane law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Massoud. Bear with me, please. Okay, we'll go on to the next person. The next person up is Oliver Starnes. Will you please state your name, unmute yourself, state your name and address to the record, please?
Hi, this is Oliver Starnes, 35 Pine Street, Morristown. And I'm speaking in strong support of abolishing or amending the 13th Amendment. I'd like to thank the members of council who responded to my email, and want to just bring everybody back to 2017, when the mayor and council declared Morristown as a fair and welcoming community. And just think about the amount of comfort that brought folks who identified with that community. Fast forward to 2020, February of this year, the New York Times headline talks about white supremacy as a real threat domestically. And, you know, that instills a certain level of fear in the common individual. You know, then you fast forward to the events of this summer in Lewis Morris Park, the unfortunate hanging of Imani Kildia, something that we still don't have details on, and without a prosecutor in place, it's hard to understand what or when that we'll learn next about what happened to Imani in Lewis Morris Park. And just last week, the Department of Homeland Security is again talking about white supremacy as a domestic terrorism threat. So if there is no support from this council to amend the 13th Amendment, then I need the council to denounce white supremacy in all of its forms. The fear is real, and we're not seeing any leadership coming out of Washington. So I need my elected leaders to be on the forefront of what is an impactful movement. You know, it's a targeted approach at making systemic change. This summer of 2020 was an awakening personally for me, awakening about New Jersey's relationship with slavery. And that perhaps is the biggest lesson I took from, you know, this summer. I think anything that the town of Morristown can do to denounce white supremacy, to abolish slavery in all of its forms, and to be at the forefront of that would mean a lot, not only for me, not only for Black people across the county, but for the entire country. So please understand what position that you have and you hold, and please do not be afraid to put yourself out there and name white supremacy, denounce it, and abolish slavery in all of its forms. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. The next person is Tiana Kimbrough. Would you please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, hi, good evening. Tiana Kimbrough, 250 Martin Luther King Avenue, Morristown, New Jersey. So I would just like to say, thank you for listening to all of our comments that have been put forth about amending the 13th Amendment. I've been a longtime resident of Morristown, and my personal view on this is that in 2020, it's still very frustrating to still have to fight for what is morally wrong. Our Morristown mayor, he prides himself with how diverse and inclusive this town is and fair and welcoming. So I just think that it's time that Morristown takes the necessary steps and do the right thing and add this to the next town hall meeting on the agenda to be voted on. I want to speak to BLM Morristown had protests, I was teaching a few weeks back, and, as fair and welcoming, this community should be, just tune in to the town advisory for traffic for that day of the march and see all the unwelcoming comments by probably over 20 to 50 people that was made, calling us terrorists. And these are residents. These are people who are some commuters. These are neighboring town residents. And it's disheartening because I love this town. I love everything about it. And, it's unfortunate that in this day and age, in such a diverse town, that we have to see that. Even with, Morristown Green article that was put out, I believe yesterday, the comments on Facebook, the comments about, why slavery should still exist in our prison system. It's disgusting. And I think that it's time that, you guys get on the right side of history. And I understand as well, you're going to get pushback. You're going to have people in your ears telling you not to sign on to this, but it's time to publicly denounce this. I think this would be huge for Morristown, and it's time. So please consider all comments made on amending the 13th Amendment and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kimbrough. The next person is Michael Mose. Would you please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record?
Hello, my name is Michael Mose and I live at 7 Cadena Road. I'm a current Morristown High School senior and the student body treasurer. I fully support amending the 13th Amendment to remove the exception for crime and truly abolish slavery in all forms. The 13th Amendment has a significant loophole in its exception clause, which specifies treating human beings, in effect, as slaves if they have been duly convicted of a crime. It is one facet of the broken American prison system, but it is a facet Morristown can impact. Morristown has a unique opportunity to join other states and cities leading the way towards an improved American prison system. Morristown's officials need to be proactive. As the seat of one of the richest counties in the country, Morristown can stand as an example to help make this change at the state and national level. It's time to lead the charge and establish groundbreaking precedent. Thank you, and have a nice night.
Thank you. The next person is Lauren Bass. Ms. Bass, if you'll unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Lauren Bass, 3 Shady Lane. Sorry if I'm going to repeat some of the things that have been spoken about, but I wanted to share our concerns. In February of 2020, we learned that the owners of One Shady Lane were applying through the state for a sober living license. We notified the town and wanted to be proactive about that. In a March meeting, we were sure that we had nothing to worry about, that it wasn't an issue since it was against zoning and it wouldn't be approved by the town. Then in April, we watched in total disbelief as the residents moved in. Furniture, vans, multiple people in and out, staffing. It was a number of days of a process. Again, in April, we were told that the town didn't approve this and it was a zoning violation and that it would be fought. And yet, here we are, 5 months later, a fully operational co-ed, sober living, a commercial business in a residential neighborhood. In the height of an already extremely stressful pandemic, we have been put more on edge by this situation. Unfortunately, many of our fears for this neighborhood have come true. Within days, street signs were defaced, traffic back and forth, numerous cars parked on the street, more trash, including vaping paraphernalia on the street, strangers walking up and down the street, sometimes just meeting on the side of the street, an industrial COVID cleanup, and now most recently, a syringe found in our neighbor's vegetable garden. Our children and their friends play outside on our swing set directly on the other side of that same fence. It could have easily been our 2.5-year-old who found and picked up that syringe. We are grateful that it wasn't. But how do we protect them? I'm sorry for the emotion, but please understand, one that started with a devastating fire in 2014 that left the house boarded up for close to a year and the loss of a life, followed by college housing, numerous rentals, and an Airbnb. We always bring our concerns up, but we seem to be back in the same place as we were a few years ago. Our frustration is coming from a place of always feeling placated, ignored, uninformed. We need your action, your communication, your next steps. I appreciate you listening and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Ms. Bass. The next person is Claire Schreiber. Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, hello. This is actually Claire Schreiber's dad, Joel Schreiber. I live at 5 Shady Lane, so the next house over from Ms. Lauren Bass, 2 houses over from number 1 Shady Lane. And I think I'm going to keep it very brief because Lauren covered the issue extremely well. But I do want my voice to be heard. I'm going to repeat basically what I said to this council just a couple of years ago, right after this number 1 Shady Lane, in essence, became a college frat house with cars at all hours of the night up and down the street. My fear of my daughter, Claire, 10 years old, of just allowing her to play on this residential street, coming true. And now, once again, as Ms. Bass stated, coming true yet again. We fought it, with all our voices heard. We finally were able to get the persuade, right, the slumlord to move out of our residential street, only now to once again have a commercial business, a sober house. How would you guys feel? It's just my one question, right? We all love this town for many reasons, right? One of the main reasons is it's a great place to raise your kids. Well, if you had to raise your kids a house or two houses over, right, from a house illegally, right, occupied by drug addicts, how would you feel? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. The next person on the list is Kylie Smith. Ms. Smith, if you will mute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Kylie Smith. I'm of 8 George Street, and I'm a senior at Morristown High School. And I'd just like to say that I'm in full support of abolishing the 13th Amendment. I think too many African Americans have suffered under the 13th Amendment, and it has gone on too far. I think that this is more than just a political issue, but this is a human rights issue, and I think that Morristown should be on the right side of this. If we are going to be an inclusive town, if we are going to put ourselves out as an inclusive town, we should be doing things that include everybody. And the 13th Amendment purposely excludes African Americans. And I think it's selfish of us to just ignore it, but we should tackle it head on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. You're muted, Jillian.
Thank you, Councilman. The next person up is Meredith Davidson. Will you please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Meredith Davidson. I live at 10 Colonial Road in Morristown. And I want to, as my fellow community members have, express my support for a Morristown resolution to support an amendment to the 13th Amendment, to abolish slavery in all forms and to set an example for our youth and all of New Jersey. Thank you.
Ms. Davidson. The next one up, Shiva Neval. Please disable your video. Unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Shivani Vale. I live at 41 Stiles Avenue, Morris Plains, New Jersey, and I'm a junior at Morristown High School. I'm here to state my full support of the earlier statements in amending the 13th Amendment in order to completely abolish slavery. It is absolutely unacceptable that such a loophole that works to subjugate people to inhumane treatment exists in the United States legislature. Morris County has the ability to set a precedent that can make massive strides in human rights across the entire nation, and it is our duty to use our power for good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Novell. Okay, Council President, I do not see any other hands raised for public comment.
All right, so we will close the public hearing. Thank you very much for all those. And move into council responses to public hearing comments.
Stefan, I'd like to address 3 of the comments, and I know administration is going to have a follow-up on it also.
Okay.
First, with reference to Thaddeus and Altamont Court, I think the 3 requests he's making are absolutely right on. I apologize that I did not know about this problem. I think the request with reference to overflowing dumpsters and appropriate fines, or requiring sites to have a requisite size of dumpster to facilitate the uses in those buildings is more than appropriate. And if not, there should be some requirement as to the frequency that the trash is actually picked up by the commercial haulers. I think the second thing that Thaddeus is asking for is also right on, which is in the event that there is a dumpster, exterior of the building, what is their pest control program associated with that dumpster so that it does become a public nuisance for the neighbors. And the last request is that we actually enforce the rules that we make. You know, if a fine's appropriate, a fine should be levied. And I think the mayor will comment on this one later, but I think the request that Thaddeus is making is right on. One of the requests that Mr. Quattro made with reference in addition to Shady Lane, was the noise at the hospital. I actually thought this was very interesting because we had entertained the possibility of doing an enforcement ordinance with reference to noise. That basically, I think, would take the subjectivity out of the enforcement of noise in our town and make it more objective and actually give probably more of a platform for enforcement back to the residents. I think we should bring that back. Quite frankly, I think this is just another example of the necessity of having a formal process for noise control in our town and the enforcement of the state DEP standards. Now to Shady Lane. I have to say, you know, what you heard tonight is really only part of it. I've heard from every single resident on Shady Lane. I've been in conversations with administration. I'm actually apologetic because I think what we've been focused on the last few weeks has been, you know, big projects, which is great. Okay, maybe great for the town. But in that process, we probably have lost sight of what we're really here for, which is the safe. One of the reasons why we're here is the safe and quiet and peaceful enjoyment of people's properties. This has been taken away from the people in on Franklin Avenue and the people on Shady Lane. This is something we should not be afraid to litigate. Okay, it's probably, you know, this is actually affecting the families, it's affecting their lifestyles, it's affecting their sense of safety in their own community. There is no doubt in my mind that this is a commercial use. This is a use that has been regulated by the Department of Consumer Affairs. It is not regulated by the Department of Human Services. It is not regulated by the Department of Health. This is clearly a commercial use where people are not residents who usually with most group homes become a very valuable part of a community. This is just the opposite. This is people coming and going and staying there for 30, maybe 40 days, maybe as short as 15 days, people abandoning their treatment, okay? And when they abandon their treatment, they're leaving. People are coming and going all hours of the night. You've heard the issues that the people have described this evening. Bottom line is that it is in the courts. Papers have been filed. What I find very interesting about the litigation is that the input of the residents was not sought in providing information to the courts on what's being experienced on Shady Lane. And secondly, what I find interesting is that we didn't even ask them for an affidavit so that the courts actually have a flavor of the issue when reviewing this on the papers. So a few requests here. The first request is that we actually continue to push for a timely hearing, but also maybe this record should be augmented so that the court and the hearing officer can actually hear what we heard tonight and what we have been hearing over the course of the last 5 to 6 months. I also have one other request. I think enough is enough. I think it is now time that we actually issue a cease and desist order. Why wait for the courts? Okay, it's in the courts. If they want to appeal it, these are money damages. Okay, it can be handled in the courts. My point being is let's move forward. Okay, it's been 5 months, 6 months. These people's lives have been totally disturbed. They have no sense of safety in their own homes, in their own neighborhood, and it's our job to protect them. So what I'm going to ask, and I'm not asking, I am requesting that a cease and desist order be issued against that facility and that operation be stopped as soon as possible.
Thank you. All right. So let's see before I get to it. I'd like to just address Mr. Williams' comments about the availability of M Station financial analysis and redevelopment agreement. If the council votes to introduce the ordinance approving the pilot, then the financial analysis, essentially the pilot application will be, I believe, made available to the public. The redevelopment agreement is not yet finalized, and that will not be made available until that is. I guess that's by resolution, so that won't be available until that is approved. Is that correct, or Julian? Oops. Anyway, I'm not sure about the redevelopment agreement, when that would be made available.
I'll defer that to our attorney.
Yes, Mr. Council President, you're correct. The redevelopment agreement is approved by resolution, so that would be available at the time that it's ready to be acted upon. But it will certainly be available to the public once it is approved. Until it's approved, it's in draft form.
Thank you.
I would like to address two issues, if that's okay. First, Mr. Sudol, I appreciate your passion on this issue, as well as everybody who wrote in. Council President Armington and I have stated verbally and in writing that the town ordinance 25-9 will remain as is. I do apologize if my statement in the past was misunderstood or misinterpreted, but that was never my intention. Again, the town ordinance will remain as it is. The other topic I do want to address is the amendment, changing the 13th Amendment. I want to thank Becca Carger for bringing this to my attention and asking me to get involved and to talk to the town and take a stand. There was a resolution that was written. I am going to review it again with Council President Armington and ask that if it is ready to go, we could put it on the next agenda and our council can read it and we could take a vote. And we do, I think, all but denounce white supremacy. Just, I'd like to bring that out that I can't even touch on it because it's a horrible thing to talk about, but this town doesn't promote we all denounce white supremacy, I think it's safe to say, and I'm looking forward to getting this this resolution on the books and moving it forward, and hopefully all the young people who are out there that are passionate will move it in their towns and we can get it going on the state level and get it on the ballot in November 2021. Thank you.
Sandy, I would just recommend once you've taken a look at the draft resolution, if you think it's good to go, please forward it on to our town attorney, Feej, for him to review it for legal, essentially, review.
Okay, thank you.
And Sandy, thank you for mentioning, I don't know if Oliver Starnes is still on the call, but I would happily and enthusiastically denounce white supremacy in all of its forms, and I'm sure everyone else in the council, I'd invite you to join me as well in doing the same.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that I commend everyone for coming forth, and Councilwoman Sandy for helping bring this to the forefront. And I know you and I have had numerous conversations about this amendment and the change that everyone who spoke so passionately is looking to bring forth. And I like to especially thank our young participants on the call today who spoke so eloquently and so passionately about wanting to do something to bring forth about the change to abolish slavery and just kind of put it to an end through doing something through the resolution for the 13th Amendment. So again, I thank you all for being so passionate and compassionate and participating on the call this evening.
Yep.
Mayor, do you want to address the comments, or do you want to move
Sure.
into your?
I'll address a couple, and I'm sure Counselor Town Attorney will address a few, and maybe Jillian too. First, let me just start with Thad. Yeah, that one complaint did go to the health department. You're absolutely correct. I've heard a few reports out of New York with the many restaurants that are closed. There has been an uptick of rat infestation in the city. So not just the dumpsters, but other restaurants and areas that may have closed. And I direct over to Morristown Deli in that area, that closed up. So people who own buildings, they have to make sure that they continue to do the pest control. So what we'll do is we'll get with the business administrator to get with the health department to make sure that even the buildings that are not occupied should have their pest control, make sure that's done in a timely fashion. That's what, those are areas that people will probably cut back on, and we can't have that. Other than that, we will talk to the health department and see what actions we can take as municipality. I think maybe some of the outside dining might also contribute to it in a way. At the bottom of Elm Street, much more activity outside, so there's a lot of changes with buildings and stuff. So let's see what we can do. Let's get the health department on and make sure everybody's doing their pest control. And then we will get back to you because this is the first time I'm aware that there's been an infestation. And we will not let it just go away. We'll jump on it. And I'll get back to you on that. A couple other things. First, let me talk about, before I go into the 13th Amendment, let me talk about Shady Lane. I can't tell you how many times it is very frustrating that I have to talk to the town attorney. What's up? What's the news? What's the latest? On a constant basis. And although I wish I had the power, I could just go in and shut somebody down and pull them out of their house and tell them they're not being good neighbors. They're breaking the law. They didn't get a zoning permit. We did all the due diligence to the state. We called the governor's office. We called DCA. We did everything we were supposed to do, and it fell on deaf ears. They didn't do anything. And they violated the zoning laws. However, I am bound, and I'm sure the attorney will back this up. I am bound by certain laws that I just can't send people in to remove people, or maybe what Mr. Iannacone is talking about, the Vij can opine on. But my hands are tied to a degree. I know it's frustrating, but it's in the courts. I'll let the counselor talk about where we are in the courts, when a decision should come down, and when we can get this dealt with. Vij, can you take 2 minutes and just update where we're at?
Sure. So this is something that this issue is near and dear to me, literally speaking. So it's not something that has fallen to the wayside as has been implied, but there is a process. And unfortunately, we have to follow the process. And the process was that in the end of April, and correct me, Jillian, if I'm wrong, end of April is when we sent a cease and desist letter to the operator, to the residents at 1 Shady Lane, and said they are in violation of the zoning ordinance. And by ordinance, we have to do this. We have to send a notice. You're in violation of the zoning ordinance. You have 30 days to cure. If you don't cure, you will be in violation, and we will issue the summons. They did not cure. We issued the violation. They had a first appearance. They're represented by the Gibbons firm in Newark. They had the first appearance. They wanted discovery. The town's position has always been consistent. It has never changed. It's been consistent that you have to follow the law, the zoning rules, and you have to go before a board of adjustment to obtain a variance. You cannot simply start operating a commercial establishment in this neighborhood, in the residential neighborhood. We'll always maintain that. So when it's a first appearance, Bob, as you know, due process, they claim, okay, they need something. Last month, they had a second hearing. at which point they wanted to schedule a trial. And due to COVID, we don't have bench trials right now. That's the order from the AOC. There's nothing we can do about that. So our position, a way around that, was it's a legal issue. It's not a factual issue. It's a legal issue on whether this is a permitted use or not. So we don't need any fact witnesses. And if we can get the other side to agree it's a legal issue, then all we have to do is submit briefs and the judge will make a decision. We were able to get the other side to agree that it's simply a legal issue that can be decided just on the papers without the need for a trial. I thought that was a big win for us. The briefs by the town have been submitted, I'm told. The other side has few weeks to submit their briefs, and the judge will issue a decision. Now, the only other thing I want to say is we as the administration, the executive branch, cannot put any undue influence on the courts, judicial branch. We're not able to call the judge. We're not able to call the court and tell them they have to do certain things or they have to rule certain ways. So that's why we have to let the process play out. But we have done at every turn, we have tried to streamline the process and push the issue as much as we can under the law and under the limits that we have. So right now, the way it stands is the town's briefs is in. The other side has an opportunity to respond to the brief, and the judge will make a decision. And we believe, and our position always is, that when you apply for zoning, the reason the law says you have to go before a zoning board is so that the neighbors get noticed. The neighbors come out before the zoning board and they let their feelings be known and let the sentiments and everything that goes on the record. And the zoning board gets to decide whether this commercial establishment meets the criteria and deserves to be in a residential neighborhood. That's what we have said from day one, and that's the process that One Shady Lane needs to follow, and they have failed to follow, and that's why we're in court. There's nothing else that we can do to force the issue.
You know, V, it's just a thought here, okay? And I hope it's only a legal issue. But just a thought here. You've heard a lot from the folks tonight. And I know it may not weigh into the decision on the legal issue, whether it's a violation of zoning. I don't know if the judge is going to question whether or not it's a commercial use or not a commercial use. Maybe Gibbons is going to try to use the angle of group homes, what have you. Nevertheless, why can't, because what's going to happen, we filed our brief, we're waiting for them to file their brief, okay? And then there's going to be, God knows how much time with COVID and with courts not slowing down, how much time before we have some type of decision on the matter. Why, you heard from the neighbors tonight, it's almost like an emergent situation. Why not an order to show cause? Why not some kind of something that expedites it through the courts by basically the harm that this use is now immediately causing the families in this neighborhood? I don't think we can just wait, not by doing it by some kind of urgent relief or some type of order to show cause, whatever it might be, you know, okay? Why don't we get into the court and say, this is a safety issue today. This is, you're talking about children, you're talking about neighborhoods. Why aren't we taking that angle to expedite this?
Well, because when you, as you're aware of the Crow factors of what goes into an order to show cause, and we don't meet any of those factors. We can certainly file it, and Judge Minkwitz will schedule a return of the order to show cause 2 weeks from now. The attorneys will meet. Judge Minkwitz will say file briefs. So that's not going to be a quick. From what I'm told, there will be a decision. That's what I'm told, but there should be a decision by the end of October on this issue by the courts.
You know, I don't know. I don't know.
If the council wants me to file an order to show cause, I'll be more than happy to do so.
I don't know. I actually, I think given the situation on Shady Lane, I think we should, I don't know who's
Oh,
litigating this. I don't
okay.
know. On the
All right,
paper.
well, Bob, I'll take it a step further. Go ahead, Veej.
Thanks, Mayor.
File it.
Thanks, Mayor.
Okay.
Veej, I know that you're probably right, but file it anyway. Do whatever we can. And let me also be clear on another issue. I have some serious time with understanding alcohol and drugs. And so when I heard about the syringe, the first thing I said, well, I want it tested. I want to go to a lab. I wanted all this stuff. I wanted a criminal investigation. And you know what? Doesn't happen that way. It's not part of a crime. So I don't even get to find out if it was insulin or if it was drug related. So it's very frustrating on my end. But one of the things also I'm going to take over on this is, Bob, you have the email chain for Shady Lane, correct?
I do. I can help out with this.
You will get a monthly update from my office or biweekly, whatever they want from my office. Every 2 weeks, you will get a letter sent to you from my assistant, where we're at, what information Veej has for those 2 weeks. You will email it twice a month to the people of Shady Lane. It's about lack of communication also isn't good on this either. So I'll take care of that. Third thing I want to talk about is the noise ordinance. I actually have it on video, the noise ordinance from that hospital that night with the jackhammer. I have a video of it. I did call the hospital president in the morning. I should have called her at midnight, but I called her in the morning and she was not aware of it. I said, well, you know, there's rules you have to follow when you want to work at night. And they just went ahead and did it without the knowledge of the president of the hospital. So there's some issues within their own pecking order as far as whoever runs the operation should know better than to be jackhammering at 9 o'clock at night. But I've got the video and I sent her the video. So we will stay on that. Maybe the neighborhood needs to meet with the president of the hospital and start, you know, vetting what needs to be vetted. You know, they go in spurts. So that's the best I can do is contact the hospital. They should issue a noise ordinance. That is clearly a noise ordinance. That's a loud jackhammer. Veej, was a ticket issued?
There was a summons issued, yes.
Okay, all right. And I thank gentleman who is forceful about having the police write tickets. We have said in the past on numerous occasions, one of the things we talked about at the last council meeting, it didn't come up, was the 250 plus summonses that were written over the summer of 2019 in the downtown. That didn't come up at the here. We didn't, you know, there's, you know, we want them to write tickets if they're violating an ordinance. And that clearly was a violation of an ordinance. And there should be no question that a violation ticket should have been issued immediately. So I appreciate the video I was sent by a neighbor, but you know, I did call the hospital and we're going to stay on them on the noise issue. The last thing I want to say is the councilwoman Sheba Foster mentioned it. I always get I think it's great when high schoolers come out and take point in an issue, and it really shows Morristown in a really good light, our education process. And I want to thank all the people that came out and the dialogue that the council is going to have on that change they want to put in for a resolution that's starting to take national precedence. I don't know, maybe Councilwoman Mayer knows how many states have signed on, but I don't think we're the first. But there's a number of states that are looking at this. So when it comes up next week, you will have the full support of the mayor's office, if that helps. It's a resolution by the council, and I know you guys are going to vet it. And I want to thank everybody who came out in support of it. Other than that, that's it I have on the comments for the public.
Mayor Doherty, I just want to let you know, 3 states have passed it so far, but many other states it's in the works. I'm glad that we are going to be the grassroots town that gets us kicked off, and we're going to be the leaders once again on a topic that really needs to be brought to the forefront of everybody's mind. This is, I feel like, a no-brainer that we need to make this change, and I'm hoping the council's all on board with this. I hope that they support it. I will get the resolution over to our council, and we can move forward and be a leader, and hopefully we'll have a lot of towns and counties following suit.
Also, Council President, I don't want to cut off our business administrator, Jillian Barrick. She may have something to say. And also the start work time, they're not allowed to start work at 7 o'clock. So we need to send them, send the president of the hospital, an email from my office and the construction office that they can't start construction at 7 o'clock.
It's just for clarification that the noise ordinance basically doesn't allow construction, non-emergency construction to start until 8 o'clock on
right. Correct.
Monday through Friday and 9 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays.
Correct. Ms. Barrett?
Honestly, Mayor, I think you've covered everything. So I know we have a lot to talk about, and it's the hour's late, so I won't add anything. Thank you.
All right. I'm sorry. Thank you.
All right. So where are we? Council liaison reports.
The parking authority did meet. Actually, it was an interesting meeting because half the meeting was actually at the Hyatt. So there was some socializing going on in a very, very large space. Nevertheless, most of the people were still video, which was interesting. Nevertheless, the great news is the rent assistance grant that they have, that they're working through with the business people in town. That is very, very good news. And other than that, they're just doing what they can to promote the businesses in town and ask us to all continue to support the restaurants any way we can. Thank you.
Morris Housing Authority, there are no new updates. However, the RAD town halls meetings that are being held with the tablets are ongoing and recorded. They are collecting frequent asked questions to foresee any issues on the work that is projected to do. That's all. Thank you.
I think you skipped me there, Council President.
Oh, sorry. I thought you deferred to Jillian as to the mayor's report.
No. I have some proclamations. I've got a.
Oh yeah, sorry.
You want to just finish up liaison?
Let's finish up the liaison reports, and then we'll go back to the proclamations.
All right.
I'll give the shade tree report. We're continuing with the systematic tree trimming, mainly in the second ward, about 500 trees. A very important thing to note is we only lost between 5 to 8 public trees in the past storms we've had this summer. And that's because we trim our trees. We've done a fantastic job. The town has been continuing support of a healthy tree plan. And our shade tree crew on DPW has been trimming trees. It helps with when you cut down branches, stops a lot of the tree damage. The shade tree is also working on a parks plan. They've taken pictures, they were giving reports, and the chair will forward those reports to us in the next few weeks for our review. That's it.
The Morristown Parking Authority met on September 15th. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the Zoom because I had a wait to attend to, but they are moving ahead with the pay by phone, hands-free payment for the parking and lots in the on-street parking meters.
Good. All right. Let's move to the mayor's proclamations and presentations.
Okay, we'll start with the proclamation for diaper need. Diaper need, the condition of not having a sufficient supply of clean diapers. And Jordan Lang, you can pick this up in my office. So I'm just going to read it into the record, and the proclamations are on in frames, and they'll be at the mayor's office. Whereas diaper need, the condition of not having sufficient supply of clean diapers to ensure that infants and toddlers are clean, healthy, and dry can adversely affect the health and welfare of infants, toddlers, and their families. National survey report that 1 in 3 mothers experience diaper need at some time while their children are less than 3 years of age. And 48% of families delay changing a diaper to extend their supply. Children go through 6 to 12 diapers each day during 2 to 3 years they wear diapers. Purchasing enough diapers to keep a baby or toddler clean, dry, and healthy can consume 14% of a low-wage family's post-tax income, making it difficult to obtain a sufficient supply. Daily or weekly supply of diapers is generally an eligibility requirement for babies and toddlers to participate in child care programs and quality early education programs. Without enough diapers, babies and toddlers risk infections and health problems that may require medical attention and prevent parents from attending work or school, thereby hurting the family's economic prospects and well-being. Morristown recognizes that diaper need is a public health issue, and addressing diaper need can lead to economic opportunity for the state's families and communities and improve health for children, thus ensuring all children and families have access to basic necessities required to thrive and reach their full potential. Morristown is proud to be the home of trusted community-based organizations, including the Moms Helping Moms Foundation, that recognize the importance of diapers in ensuring health and providing economic stability for families, and thus distribute diapers to families through various channels. Whereas these diaper banks and their staff and volunteers serve on the front lines of Morristown COVID-19 pandemic response, helping families with our community weather this crisis. While experiencing double, triple, or greater increase in demand for diapers due to the pandemic and economic shutdown, these diaper banks did everything in their ability to increase diaper distribution and support children and families in need of immediate assistance. Now, therefore, I, Timothy P. Doherty, Mayor of the Town of Morristown, do hereby proclaim the week of September 21st through the 27th of 2020 as Diaper Need Awareness Week in the Town of Morristown. A special thank you to the aforementioned diaper banks, their staff, volunteers, and donors for their courageous service during this crisis. And I encourage the citizens of Morristown to donate generously to diaper banks, diaper drives, and those organizations that collect and distribute diapers to those struggling with diaper need, so all of Morristown's children and families can thrive and reach their full potential. The next proclamation is a proclamation for National Hispanic Heritage Month. September 15th, our birthday, through October 15th is recognized as National Hispanic Heritage Month and is marked by celebrations highlighting the achievements of Hispanic and Latino Americans and their contributions made to our communities. Hispanics have had a profound and positive influence on our country through their strong commitment to family, faith, hard work, and service. They have enhanced and shaped our character with centuries-old traditions that reflect the multi-ethnic and multicultural customs of their community. Hispanic Heritage Month was first observed in 1968 under President Lyndon Johnson and was expanded by President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period. September 15th is significant because it is the anniversary of the independence for Latin American countries, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. In addition, Mexico and Chile celebrate their Independence Days on the 16th of September, and September 18th, relatively, also Columbus Day, or Dia la Raza, which I think they changed Columbus Day, is no longer called Columbus Day, which is October 12th, falls within this 30-day period. The term Hispanic or Latino refers to Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin, regardless of race. On the 2010 census form, people of Spanish, Hispanic, or Latino origin could identify themselves as Mexican, Mexican American, Chicano, Puerto Rican, Cuban, or another Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. National Hispanic Heritage Month is a time to honor the contributions Hispanics have made throughout our history and acknowledge their positive impact on our community. Now, therefore, I, Timothy P. Doherty, as Mayor of the Town of Morristown, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2020, as National Hispanic Heritage Month in the Town of Morristown, and I encourage Morristown residents, community organizations, and local officials to observe this month with the appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programming. And the last proclamation. Each year, the United States Excuse me one second. Each year, the United States has an estimated 15,780 children from the age of 0 to 19 are diagnosed with cancer, and 20% of these children will not survive the disease. Cancer kills more children than AIDS, asthma, cystic fibrosis, diabetes, and muscular dystrophy, combined remaining the #1 cause of death by disease for children in America. The types of cancers that affect children are most often very difficult from those that affect adults, and there are not just one disease, but made up of a dozen types and countless subtypes of cancer. Childhood cancer spares no socioeconomic, ethnic, racial, or geographic class. The causes of most pediatric cancers are largely unknown and not strongly linked to lifestyle like adult cancers. 2/3 of childhood cancer patients will develop long-lasting chronic conditions as a result from treatment that prevent them from fully participating in school, social activities, and work. In the past 20 years, only 4 drugs have been approved by the FDA to specifically treat childhood cancer. Too many children are affected by this deadly disease, and more must be done to raise awareness and find a cure. Now, therefore, I, Timothy P. Doherty, Mayor of the town of Morristown, do hereby proclaim September 2020 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in the town of Morristown. I encourage residents and community leaders to observe this cause that so deeply impacts families in every community across our country. That's the proclamations, Council President, for this evening. I will now give you an update on the upcoming events. On September 28th, mark your calendars, especially 4th Ward Councilwoman and at-large Councilman Michael Elms, and everybody else who wants to attend. Foots Pond Public Information Meeting. They will meet at Foots Pond Wood next to the fireplace on James Street. And you can go to the website and see the notice. That's www.townofmorristown.org. Because guess what's coming? Hydro raking, finally. So that's the 28th is for the public information meeting. So get it out to your constituents that want to attend, and you all should come down anyway. October 3rd, that's the 28th of September. October 3rd, there's a shred event, Town Hall parking lot, $5 per box or bag. And you can also see that on the town website. That's October 3rd, 9 a.m. shred event. October 5th, Foots Pond hydro raking begins. It's set to be completed by, its anticipated completion within 45 days. So October 5th. Here's another one for council. October 8th, 5 p.m. Burnham Park Master Plan Public Meeting at the Burnham Park Pavilion. Finally going to get to the public
5 p.m.
Burnham Park Master Plan, which is terrific. That's October 8th at 5 p.m. at the Pavilion. October 12th, Town Hall is closed for the holiday. Also, Engineering Department has released revised schedule of road closures for milling and paving began the other day. That go through Friday the 25th. If you go to the website, www.townofmorristown.org, you can ask questions and can be directed to Assistant Municipal Engineer Ralph Dene. Just go and you can see all the streets that are coming for milling and paving. I think that is it, Council President, for the mayors. Yes, that's it. If before you start the hearing on your first ordinance, I do have something to read into the record.
Okay.
Whenever you tell me.
Okay. Let's see, where are we? Okay, so we're basically on regular business. And Margo, I believe we wanted to revise the agenda to move up 032-2020 to the beginning of the agenda. Can we just do that, or?
Yes, that is correct. There are 4 ordinances for introduction this evening. We're going to begin with ordinance O-32-2020, ordinance approving the application and authorizing the financial agreements for long-term tax exemption by and between the Town of Morristown and M Station East Urban Renewal Associates LLC and the Town of Morristown and M Station West Urban Renewal Associates LLC.
I'll make a motion to introduce. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Mary, you wanted to make a statement?
Yeah, I'm going to read a statement into the record. Fellow Morristown residents, tonight the council will consider advancing the M Station project to the next stage. The financial agreement under consideration is a result of careful negotiation and represents a fair agreement that produces a transformational project for our town while contributing to the financial well-being of Morristown well into the future. The financial agreement is necessary to move forward, and I believe this is the best move for our town, and let me tell you why. Over the past couple of years, our community has engaged in robust discussion and debate about M Station. The public process, which was among the most intense I have seen during my 32 years in Morristown, 20 of those in local politics, concluded that a world-class office space, modern retail storefronts, and a host of infrastructure upgrades would have a lasting positive impact on our community. It is now time to take the next step. Through redevelopment, Morristown has blossomed in the past decade. These projects have reinvigorated our community, resulting in new housing, public improvements, retail, and dining options. That is a record we all can be proud of, one that has made our community more resilient and accessible. I am deeply proud of the job we have done together. Before the public health crisis that gripped our nation earlier this year, Morristown's businesses were flourishing. Our streets were teeming with people, our restaurants were doing fabulous. We reclaimed our rightful position as the regional center for commerce, culture, innovation, and entertainment. Morristown has been one of New Jersey's most significant success stories. Our efforts are paying off. But the reality is that COVID changed our circumstances essentially overnight and now threatens the progress we have made. Our business community faces enormous challenges. Municipal revenues are declining. Communities everywhere will be forced to cut budgets. Century 21 is closing. King's Supermarket is in bankruptcy. Too many businesses are struggling and many are closing their doors. While Morristown has prospered until now, the past 6 months have proven things can turn very quickly. While the construction of M Station won't solve all our problems, it will certainly help contribute to our long-term fiscal stability, fund sorely needed infrastructure upgrades, and bring jobs to town that will drive daytime activity essential to the future of survival of our small businesses. It was for this reason that the council in October of 2019 took the bold move to advance M Station, unanimously approving amendments to a redevelopment plan that had sat on the shelf for well over a decade. Then in June of the year, the planning board approved the site plan for the project of series of intense hearings. Last month, Morris County Planning Board granted their approval. The site now sits vacant, ready for development. The ball is back in our court once more. It is now time for us to take the action on the remaining legal agreements that will allow M Station to proceed. I am convinced that failure to move forward in a timely manner will jeopardize this project. M Station can be the keystone to our recovery, and we need to act accordingly. Today, the center generates approximately $94,000 in revenue annually for Morristown. With this financial agreement, when fully completed, this project is expected to generate over $1 million a year to the town. There are minimum payments that will increase over 30 years. This addition to the $2.5 million contribution this project will make to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I also look forward to working with the governing body to allocate a portion of these funds to support the public school children of our town. The significant fiscal benefit to our residents is clear. Fiscal responsibility and leadership means making the best deal for the town under these circumstances. And you don't need to take my word for it. Shortly, you will hear from our extremely capable financial analyst, Bob Powell of Nassau Partners. He will tell you why the deal before you tonight is the right for Morristown. Again, let's not lose sight of what's at stake. When completed, this project will generate $1 million in additional revenue for Morristown. It will create hundreds of construction jobs, attract 1,400 permanent well-paying jobs. It will generate resources for affordable housing, fund needed traffic improvements, and create beautiful public spaces. It will attract workers who will support our retail, our restaurants, and civic organizations, and support the value of our residential properties. Are pilots always the answer? Only when they are absolutely necessary to implement a project that is a right fit for our town, that provides overall benefits to our residents. I've seen how redevelopment has positively transformed our community. Well-negotiated pilots can be a powerful tool to both encourage redevelopment and generate resources that benefits all residents. In this case, the simple fact is this project will not get built without a pilot or the bonds that pilot will fund. This is our reality. If this were being considered in a pre-COVID environment, my administration would not be recommending a pilot or bonds. But unfortunately, that's not our circumstances today. I encourage you, my colleagues on the town council, to introduce this financial agreement this evening. Support this project. Allow it to raise Morristown as part of our recovery. Future generations of Morristonians will enjoy its benefits, financial and otherwise. As someone once said, don't let perfect be the enemy of progress. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. Now I'll leave you in the good hands of our financial analyst, Bob Powell. Thank you, Council President.
Mayor. Mr. Powell, prepared to give us a presentation, give the public presentation on the pilot application or where we stand?
I beg your pardon. I had muted myself. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Powell.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm pleased to be with you tonight. I want to briefly walk the public and the council through some of the key features, financial features of the proposed redevelopment and financial agreement on the project that the mayor identified, and that is the subject of the official action that was being introduced tonight. What we put on the screen here is a brief PowerPoint summary of the key elements that I want to highlight as part of the presentation.
If I could, as part of your preface, I'd like to go over a brief timeline of where we are as we've done at every step of this process. What has happened so far, in 2008, there was a redevelopment plan adopted initially and a master plan was revised. Subsequent to that, this current project was proposed and presented to the council in June of 2019. We subsequently had community meetings, and ultimately the redevelopment plan was adopted in October 2019. Deloitte subsequently signed a lease for Building 1 in January. The short form redeveloper agreement was adopted by the council in February, and then subsequently site plan review and approval was done over several planning board meetings that occurred from March through June of this year. The overview of the project, it's 352,000 square feet of office and about 30,000 square feet of retail, including parking, which is a total investment of about $223 million in Morristown. The project is broken into two stages. Stage 1, which is a 118,000 square foot building, is the property that has the Deloitte commitment, and stage 2 is an additional 230,000 square feet office building with retail in both stages. Included in the project are also public improvements, including new open spaces and pedestrian amenities, the installation of a roundabout at the corner of Morris and Spring Street, in addition to additional off-site traffic improvements through the Morris Street corridor. There's several benefits to this project. There's a dramatic increase in municipal revenue, the large funding commitment to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, additional 1,400 local jobs that support local retail, restaurants, civic and philanthropic organizations, and certainly support our local residential demand and property values. This is a significant project that has multifaceted benefits to the town. And with that overview, I will now hand it to Bob to talk a little bit more about the specifics in the financial analysis. And Bob, if you will, just indicate when you're ready to move forward to the next slide.
Ready now. The ordinance that's being introduced tonight in part will authorize what's called a financial agreement, which will allow under state statute for the payment in lieu of taxes for this project. The taxes will be paid, the payments in lieu of taxes are structured in the agreement as a percentage of what's called annual gross revenues, which is basically the full revenues of all elements of this project, the 2 office buildings and the retail, with literally no real deductions, even for operating expenses. So it's a relatively simple standard to understand. The pilot and the payment in lieu of taxes, as I said, is governed by a financial agreement, which is a contract between the municipality and the developer, which sets forth the details of the agreement. So we can go to the next slide. Back up a minute for the
I
previous.
apologize. Thank
Sorry.
you.
The project, as I think you all know, is divided into 2 stages because there are 2 components to the construction. Stage 1 is the smaller of the 2 office buildings, of about 121,000 square feet, which will have some retail on the first floor. That building has been pre-leased to a single tenant for a period of 15 years. And subject to the agreements being approved by the governing body, we expect that that first building will actually commence construction very, very soon, literally in a matter of months. The stage 1 pilot agreement will provide for payments in lieu of taxes that are equal to 12% of annual gross revenues for a term of 30 years. We anticipate, based on the financial analysis that our firm has done of the stage 1 project, that 12% pilot rate will involve annual increases year over year to the revenues that are paid to the town. And therefore, the town will benefit financially from the growth in those revenues. The second stage of the project and the second agreement will cover the second of the 2 buildings, which is the larger of the 2. That building has not yet been leased to anyone, unlike the first building. And therefore, as a result of our negotiations and our analysis of the financial challenges that second building will face, we have agreed with the developer for a somewhat different kind of pilot payment arrangement for stage 2. The payments will start at 11% of annual gross revenues for the first 10 years. And then we've built in what we call step-ups in that payment rate, which will raise the percentage of annual gross revenues that's paid starting in year 11 to 12.5% and then to 14.5% for the last 20 years of the agreement, based on and depending upon the performance of the building beyond its performance in years 1 through 10. We assume, based on my experience and the assumptions that we've made in the lease up of the second building, that those step-up standards will be met in years 11 through 30, so that the step-up triggers will be effective and it will result in an increase in the pilot revenues for stage 2 above and beyond the revenues that the town would be getting in years 1 through 10. Let's go to the next slide. As a general proposition, I think in Morristown and other towns, the decision on the part of the governing body to provide a financial agreement for a redevelopment project is a discretionary decision. And it is typically not made in the affirmative by a governing body, including this one, unless we have determined that there is the need for such an agreement, and that but for the pilot arrangement, it is not likely that the project would be financially feasible and would not be built. Our firm has done a very extensive financial analysis of that question of the need for the pilot, and our conclusion for a number of specific reasons has been that the project would not be successful and in all likelihood would not be built unless the pilot arrangements that are set forth in this financial agreement are put into place. That conclusion about the need for the pilot was not clear to us and to me when I first looked at the project early in 2020. This project was, as Jillian's timeline has indicated, came together in 2019, pre-COVID, when the economy was firing on all cylinders, interest rates were low, capital markets were looking for places to invest new funds. And at that point in the history of the project, in my opinion, I think it would have been unlikely that we would have concluded at that point in time that a financial agreement would be needed for this project. What happened, though, as a result of the pandemic that rolled through the American and the world economy in early 2020 is that it triggered a substantial recession. It turned the capital markets upside down, and it caused, among other things, creditors and banks and lenders to tighten up and pull back from investing in new real estate development projects because of the great uncertainties that recession created and still creates on the part of the private sector as to how well this economy is going to perform in the near term. The evidence of that pullback and that tightening of credit was evident when we began looking at the likelihood that this developer could obtain conventional financing for this project, as we had assumed it would be able to obtain based on 2019 standards in the lending community. And the answer was it was not going to be able to finance this project with the type of aggressive financing that was available in 2019. The project finally was able to obtain financing for the first building on terms that were far less favorable than had been expected when the project was first conceived last year. And the primary change in the financing that has occurred during this period has been that lenders are not lending nearly as high a percentage of project costs in this environment as they were lending last year. When that happens and nothing else with the project changes, the costs remain the same, the revenues remain the same, but the amount of loan that you can put into the project goes significantly down. The only other source of funds that's available to make up for that lower loan amount is developer equity. And that's exactly what has happened in this case. The developer that has been designated for this project is a very substantial, successful developer of office space that is capable of putting additional equity into a project like this. And they have reluctantly but willingly agreed to do that for stage one. The equity requirement for the first phase of the project was originally modeled to be roughly $11 million. But because the loan amount that they have had to accept, they now have a loan commitment for it. The loan amount is significantly lowered, so the equity requirement has gone from $11 million to $27 million, a dramatic increase in equity. That in turn, with no other changes in costs or revenues, has significantly reduced the internal rate of return or the profitability of the project, and has been a major factor in our conclusion that a financial agreement that we're considering here is essential for that first building to go forward. The initial rate of return that we had modeled, as you see on the screen there, in early 2020 was approximately 18% of return on investment. That's a return on the $11 million of equity that we thought at the time they would be putting in. As the equity requirement went to $27 million from 11, the return on equity dropped dramatically to well below double digits, to around 8.9%, which is, in my opinion and experience, the very low end of acceptability in the capital markets. So therefore, as with respect to the first building, it's my opinion, based on the analysis we've done, that the terms of this financial agreement are extremely important in order for building 1 to proceed successfully. With respect to building 2, stage 2, we can flip to that. With respect to stage 2, the need for the financial agreement is equally compelling for the following reasons. Building 2 does not have any pre-leasing. It's the larger of the 2 buildings, and it will now be competing as it gets started after building 1 is finished. After building 1 is finished in probably 2.5 years. And during that period, and right after that, the developers will be soliciting and marketing building 2 for occupancy by office tenants. I expect, based on our understanding of the real estate markets, that office market in the next 3 to 5 years is going to be as competitive as it has ever been because of the effect that the COVID pandemic has had on the way we work and the demand that's gone down for workers needing office space as opposed to working remotely. We expect that vacancies in existing Class A office facilities in our region will increase. So we looked at the competitive environment that this developer will face in leasing building 2, especially in the near proximity to Morristown. And it was striking that one of the factors that would distinguish this building in this project from these other buildings in the competitive environment would be the real estate taxes on this new building. The real estate taxes, without a payment in lieu of taxes, the full real estate taxes on building 2 would be approximately $6.50 per square foot. Real estate taxes in an office building of this kind are typically paid as additional rent by tenants. Tenants pay base rent, and then they pay additional rent for the operating costs of the building, which largely are made up of taxes or pilot payments. That's the case with competing office buildings in Florham Park and in Madison and in other nearby office markets. Those Class A office buildings right now that do have some vacancy, and that will probably have some more vacancy over the next 5 years, have tax rates that are approximately $3.50 per square foot, as opposed to the $6.50 that we projected the stage 2 building would have in Morristown. That is a striking competitive disadvantage that second building will have if it needs to pay full real estate taxes. With the pilot agreement and the financial agreement that is summarized in the documents that are being considered first time tonight, the pilot payments in lieu of taxes would be brought down to a more realistic and competitive $3.70 a square foot. And therefore, in my opinion, will provide the developer and Morristown, frankly, because we will be in this together in terms of getting that second building going as quickly as possible. It will provide us with a much more competitive positioning in the regional office marketplace. And for that reason, in my opinion, without the pilot, building 2 does not make any financial sense for the developer over the next 5 years, and is essential for the success of that building. We could turn to the next slide. It's important to recognize that even though the pilot agreement will generate hypothetically somewhat less revenue than would be the case if the buildings could pay full real estate taxes, which, as I've just said, I don't believe they can. It's important to recap, as Jillian did earlier, that the project, once developed, will have a number of very extraordinary benefits for the town, starting with the revenues that these buildings will generate to the town through the pilot agreement. Right now, the site on which this project is built last year generated approximately $240,000 of total real estate taxes. We have projected that when this project is built out and is stabilized and leased to its 95% capacity. Instead of $240,000, the pilot payments will total a little over $1 million, which is a 4 times increase in the revenue that will come to the town. So for those reasons and the other economic development reasons that Jillian summarized earlier, the employment, the new payrolls that are coming to town, and the almost $250 million in capital investment, provide the town with substantial tangible financial benefits in return for this financial agreement. We also expect, as Jillian notes on the next slide, that the developer is required as part of this agreement to pay what's called a non-residential developer's fee, which is required of a development of this size to go into the town's affordable housing trust fund. And you're able to use that money at your discretion to support and subsidize the development and rehabilitation of affordable housing in Morristown. That's another financial benefit of moving forward with the project. You flip to the next slide. As we summarized earlier, when this project is fully occupied, it's my calculation based on similar projects of its size that it will be employing approximately 1,400 new employees. I've assumed roughly that those employees will average approximately $60,000 in annual wages, some more, some less. But at that number, that is a payroll of $83 million generated by workers coming to work every day in Morristown and presumably and hopefully walking around and shopping and taking advantage of all the other advantages that downtown Morristown has to offer. That's a lot of purchasing power to bring to the town in just one project. So for those reasons, just to summarize, it's my conclusion that based upon the analysis that we have done and the factors that we have taken into account, it's my conclusion that the provisions of the financial agreement to provide the payment in lieu of taxes are necessary in order for this project to be successful. And without those incentives, in my opinion, I do not believe this project would move forward.
Thank you, Bob. So tonight before the council for consideration is introduction of an ordinance that would approve a financial agreement pursuant to the terms that Bob has given an overview. That will be followed by a public hearing and perhaps adoption of the ordinance that would approve the redevelopment or approve the financial agreement. And then it would also be followed by a redeveloper agreement that would outline all of the requirements as part of the redevelopment project. I thank you all for your time and your presence and attention on this matter.
Thank you, Jillian. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to give the council the ability to weigh in on this. It's been a challenging effort by all. As I understand it, the administration came to this conclusion early last week or shortly before that. After which time they have briefed the full council, and since then they've been working with council members to address questions and where there are opportunities to make improvements to the financial agreement, have negotiated further with the developer to ask for and in several cases obtain additional concessions. So I appreciate the level of effort that Jen, you have done, and along with Ms. Angosino and Mr. Powell. For my part, you know, I've always thought that this is a very good project. The public benefits that I see as extremely important are those that really came to light in the planning board review. Essentially, the traffic improvements, and you know, they're significant. We believe that there's significant traffic improvements that will be made to the intersection of Spring Street and Morris with the replacement for the roundabout. Planning board also required reconfiguration of the intersection of Morris Street and Elm Street in Lackawanna to improve the traffic circulation in that intersection, as well as the intersection of Morris Street and Ridgedale Avenue, which includes $500,000 of improvements to that intersection. Taken together, all of these improvements will substantially improve the travel times between Ridgedale Avenue and Speedway Avenue. And so I think those are significant benefits. As Jillian and Bob have said, the financial benefit to the town in pilot payments exceeds $1 million, you know, every year, fully built out, and that essentially represents the equivalent of a 4% tax savings that would not otherwise be met, or would otherwise have to be met by the taxpayers. And so each one of the development projects that we do that increases the ratables for the town results in significant tax or pilot revenues that essentially eliminates the need and has eliminated the need for significant tax increases over the last 10 to 12 years. I believe Jillian advised that since the beginning, first project that we supported, Madera 44, you know, we've been the amount of tax revenue has been increasing significantly, and because of the development to date so far, we're now up to approximately $1.2 million in annual tax revenue, which represents 5 percentage points, which we taxpayers do not have to pay because we have those revenues. So I think that is a significant benefit for the taxpayers of the town. Through the efforts between the council and the administration, the developer, we've been able to front end all of the traffic improvements so that they are committed to be paid for and built as part of and at the same time as the first building. So all of those improvements will be completed concurrent with the first building, and the only public improvements, physical public improvements that would be done for phase 2 would be limited to the parks and plazas that are on the footprint of the phase 2 building area. The plan includes the allocation of approximately $200,000 to essentially put a park or a grassed area with open space facilities on the spot where phase 2 is proposed to be until such a time as when that project is developed. So, essentially providing needed open space in the downtown if and until that work can commence. I think that the project, because it is so expensive, and I think Mr. Powell said this is going to be $250 million in investment in Morristown, likely one of the most expensive projects in New Jersey in a long time, and the risk that poses, especially with regard to phase 2, as he mentioned, which is the fundamental reason why a pilot is needed in phase 2, is that the expected tax costs without a pilot will be 2/3 or double the tax costs for other comparable or other Morris County regional Class A office spaces. That said, it should be made aware that upon the completion of the pilot in 30 years, those tax differences will remain a problem. And without future tax pilots, I believe the project may be not be able to be competitive. So I think that is a question that remains outstanding. The headquarters plaza has been around for 60 years or so. I don't know what happens after 30 years with this project if it gets built, if it's not competitive in the region. So that question still needs to be addressed. But I am happy to introduce this and work with the administration to get a comfort level on that question, and I think some of the other outstanding concerns that the other council members have. So that's all I have to say. Anyone else? Bob, you're muted.
Thanks, Stefan. This is a good project for the town. I don't think we're at a point now where none of us are questioning that right now. However, when we started off, there was no pilot. Now there's a pilot, and it's a 30-year deal. We're actually talking about a financial arrangement that has to last for 30 years. And then, as you just pointed out, Stefan, what happens after 30 years, because this building is going to be here a lot longer than 30 years, with the necessary rate of return, because let's face it, we're structuring this financial transaction around the required rate of return that the investors and owners of this project require. So they require an 8%, 14% rate of return. We have to put equity into the deal via a concession on our taxes. Second thing that was concerning about this project is the phasing. And the phasing, when originally this project was not going to be phased. Now, COVID's going to be over. COVID will be over. And the economy will get back on track. It may be different, but it's going to be back on track. That being said, I still have concerns about the phasing of this project. The third piece is actually the cost of the improvements, because now with the issuance of these RAB bonds, we are paying for the principal and interest on these bonds through a portion of our pilot payments that we are receiving. So we receive the pilot payment, and we are paying the principal and interest on those 30-year bonds. Most importantly, those 30-year bonds are being used to finance the improvements associated with this project, both public and traffic improvements. My concern is that money stays available for the completion of those improvements, that those monies are actually put in some type of reserve, and that we still have access to those monies to do the necessary improvements that we're now paying for okay, in the event that something happens with the progress of this project. The other concern I'm having is this is a complicated deal, and I do applaud, the administration. I applaud our attorneys and our other counselors on this project. It is a difficult transaction. I don't like the fact that we've been pushed a little bit with this project during a period of time that's been COVID, during a period of time where public comment had certain limitations. Granted, the virtual meetings were good, okay? Presenting of complex documents and data through a smart board, so to speak, via the web, okay, was an improvement in terms of the presentation, but also there's a certain lack of public participation that likely you would have seen more of in this project. You saw that in the very beginning, okay, when we were having the community meetings. There was a tremendous turnout and a tremendous amount of concern, but a lot of that did not have legs, so to speak, or did not really have an understanding of how to participate in the virtual world. So I am a little bit concerned about the time frame that this project is actually following. Now you have a complex transaction, okay, where there's a developer's agreement involved, maybe some other agreements concerning some other commitments, which have been discussed, okay, and you have this ordinance, okay, that still needs revision to be basically brought for adoption at the second Tuesday in October, which means that the documents basically have to be done for public inspection by October 2nd, Friday, October 2nd. I don't know about anybody else, but I like seeing the transaction in its entirety before I approve anything. I don't look at one document in the course of my work. If there's multiple documents involved with the transaction, and this is just the financing, this is just the pilot and the discussion concerning the bonds, I like to see the whole transaction. We're not seeing the whole transaction in this instance. We are seeing a lot of good pieces. We're probably going to have a draft of a developer's agreement in the near future. We'll have the same time period that we've had to review the ordinance. My other concern is with reference to this tax ordinance, we actually did have very good meetings. We met Bob Powell last week. That was the first time we met him. It was a good meeting. He and John gave us an extensive amount of time in small groups to review the details. When Toshiba and I sat down, we sat down for almost 3 hours, and they were very, very sharing with the information. And we did, quite frankly, left that meeting with a good understanding of the financial terms and the financial model that was developed by Bob. That being said, it still is a complicated transaction. And I think that there is still more that can be had. We met for an hour and a half before this evening's meeting, and we were told that as a result of those meetings last week, there was other changes to the commitment of the developer in this process. And that was just after us being involved since last week. I think there's more changes that this ordinance needs. Now, I understand that there's a time commitment here, all right? But I understand that we're all willing to continue to work hard to make sure that the town gets the best deal possible. But I continue to have some concerns, and I'm going to vocalize some of those remaining concerns. The first is this pilot payment. It's a 30-year deal. And the escalation factor as to that 30-year payment, is my understanding, is basically geared off of the profitability of the project itself. That's the rents and what's the net profit that the owner and or investors are incurring. That's when we would be getting an increase in the pilot payment, the payment in lieu of taxes. That being said, I would strongly suggest that we have an escalation factor to that payment. Our taxes are going to go up, okay? Our taxes are going to go up. Okay, the school expenses aren't going to go away. Those are union contracts. Our expenses in schools are going to go up 2-3% per year. All right, we've had the benefit of no tax increases, but we're going to be looking at some hard budget times in the near future. I think an escalation factor on this pilot payment So we don't have the risk of a fixed payment for 30 years is something that must be considered. The second concern I have is the construction period. Now that we're phasing, originally when we were all talking about this project, we were hoping it's going to be done in 3-4 years. We'd have a beautiful building on site. We'd have this gorgeous promenade. We'd have the park on the corner. It would be adding to the economy almost immediately. Now this project is at a minimum. First phase may get done in a timely fashion, but the second phase, may not be done for a long time, which basically means that we who live in Morristown that travel through this center, daily or weekly, are going to be interrupted with ongoing construction. I've heard from numerous people, that's one of their biggest concerns is, how do we live during a period of extended construction, in this town? That also being said, and it could be an opportunity, and it's something I also would like to work out. This is going to be, the west lot's going to be empty for a while. To what degree, as Stefan mentioned, is this lot going to be graded and or developed into a passive park for the enjoyment of the residents? Something that unfortunately we can't get too used to if the building actually is ultimately built. But that does take the place of the other public benefit. If everybody remembers, one of the public benefits was the open space. A lot of discussion and a lot of promotion of the Grand Promenade along Morris Street, the park on the corner, and the meeting spaces along Spring Street. We're not going to see those for a while. So I'm concerned about the phasing, and I'm concerned about the overall time frame that this project's going to take to be completed. And I do understand the economic realities around it and the need to work with this developer. We met last week. There was changes, there was concessions, and I know everybody's been putting their efforts into negotiating a good agreement. I think that with further discussions, some of our remaining concerns can be addressed. I also think that a lot of what we do here, I think the language has to be precise. The language has to be read by several people, including the council, to make sure that the documents that are going to be here a lot longer than any of us on this council are very clear, are very precise, and reflect the transaction as we intend it to be transacted. So we've got a lot of work to do in the next 2 weeks before October 2nd. A lot of work to be done in the next 2 weeks before October 2nd. And my concern is that we can't get it done with the diligence or with the accuracy that our public requires. So that is my remaining concern. So my concern is by introducing this evening, we're going to be basically locking ourselves into, especially in my case, where I want to see the entire transaction into a 2-week period. And I do not necessarily feel that we, and along with administrations, along with our professionals, I hope we can do it. We'll do our hardest to get it done, but I have concerns.
Councilman, I appreciate your concerns and look forward to continuing to work with you. I do want to sort of express to you and to the rest of the body, while we certainly don't have a crystal ball, I think it's with your concerns regarding the construction period in particular, the developer has every incentive to initiate construction as soon as possible. And while I certainly echo your concerns, I do believe that the project will commence sooner than later, and look forward to nailing down the details as to how this project will move forward.
Jillian, I'm not concerned about the commencement date of building 1.
Oh, trust me, I get what you're saying. Yeah, we're all concerned about phase 2. We've talked about that in many of our meetings, and we'll continue to have conversations with the developer. But I just want to, if there's questions with the public regarding phase 2, the developer has every incentive to move forward. I believe that there's going to be significant interest in building 2, particularly after and should this council decide to move forward the financial agreement. I don't expect the site to lay fallow for long, and we certainly will do everything we can in our power to encourage them to commence construction as soon as possible.
And Jillian, don't don't misinterpret me. I think everybody has put a lot of hard work into this project and a lot of good thoughts. In fact, over the course of the last week and a half in this evening, I only wish that council had a voice in this discussion sooner than later. And I know that negotiations are timed around various things, particularly here, the urgency that maybe the developer himself is experiencing. But next time, let's do these discussions sooner than later.
Any other questions from council?
I have a
Yes.
comment, though. Council President, I have a comment on Mr. Iannacone's comments.
Sure.
Mr. Iannacone, I do agree with you. Just want the council to know that I got the package 1 week before you did. And and I have echoed those same sentiments to our professional team more than once. And it was very complicated, and Mr. Powell has done an amazing job. The guy you hired in January, his firm has done an amazing job with this project. And I have full confidence, as with the business administrator, that you will not see a long time of vacancy for building number 2. And the fact that I do know for a fact that there was a play about 10 minutes, 15 minutes from here in a very expensive town where office complex was being proposed brand new and went out to over 140 investors. Nobody. So this is a huge thing that we're doing here. And I appreciate your comments, and I echo your thoughts of we're having more time and we're cramming a lot in, just like we're cramming for an exam. And just want the council to know that I didn't have this for 6 months. I had it 1 week before you got it. That's all. Thank you, Bob.
And if I may piggyback the mayor's comments, there's not a lot of office happening in many other parts of the state, but the reason it's happening in Morristown is because Morristown is a unique place, and people want to be Morristown and businesses want to locate in Morristown. And the reason why Deloitte committed to Morristown is the same reason why they're going to continue, why we're going to see other businesses commit to Morristown. We are not in the middle of a highway. We are a walkable town. We have access to transit. All the reasons why people enjoy being in Morristown is all the reasons why I think this office complex will be successful and why SJP has chosen to invest in our town. And I think this project will be successful, unlike many of the other projects and the other similarly situated properties in other parts of the state. So, all right, thank you, Councilman, for indulging my comments.
David, you had
Yes.
comment?
I think it's very important that Morristown residents know number one, that administration, along with Bob Powell and John Inglesino, have worked hard for a few months on this negotiation. And it was hard work in the midst of COVID-19. And they have done a great job. And I just want to highlight that. But also, I just want the Morristown residents to know that the last 2 weeks or week and a half for all members of council have been, I have taken a lot of time from family and work to see these papers, to read these numbers, to try to understand everything, plus the meetings that we have had, the phone calls. We are not taking this lightly. We know that it is probably the greatest project in the history of Morristown, and we know the implications, present and future. There has been a tension in some things that we wanted to change, and also on the other side, we are not in a regular era. We are in COVID-19 pandemic era, and weighing those tensions is not an easy thing. We need to see this, and I agree with Bob on that. Next 2 weeks are going to be harder work than what we have done to get to today's point on introduction. and we need to be ready for that. And I hope we get all the information and meetings and phone calls or whatever we need to finalize and to have the next vote possible, and having the confidence that it will be the best thing for Morristown. I also want to emphasize the concerns of ongoing construction. I think nobody wants to see one stage finished and then the other lot vacant. We want to see the whole thing done, and hopefully that's what will happen. Like in everything in life, there are risks, but if we don't risk, we don't go anywhere. I think Morristown in the last decade has moved forward in a way that is, I mean, unbelievable. And I don't think, and I don't foresee that Morristown will stop that trend. Bob said COVID-19 will pass, and I believe it will pass, and the economy will recover. And probably things in life will be different, but I believe that Morristown will continue forward. The way administration is managing and administrating everything has been a positive thing for Morristown on having surpluses. And I think that we need to continue on that trend. And if we continue on that trend, we will continue also improving many things and attracting people to our town, and it will be beneficial. And not only the ongoing construction, but I see that we want to be sure that all the other things that we have talked about in the previous meeting that we had before are being written, and we are sure that those things are going to happen, and that this will be the best thing for Morristown. I think that if residents know that, they will be confident too of our decisions on voting for this project, because it is a good project. We are worrying ahead of time about next 30 years or 30 years from now. But I think that if we leave a good legacy and a good culture of administration in our town, our kids and grandkids that will be working at town will continue doing a great job. And in things like that, we need to have vision. And having vision, sometimes not too many people see what a visionary sees. And I'm seeing good things, and that's what I have to say.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, David. That was very succinct, and I'm glad you pointed out all of us are really taking this seriously. I know I've spent hours and hours with the numbers, reading, calling each other to discuss it and see what we each see, calling back and forth with the administration and getting answers. And none of this was taken lightly by any of us. And you're right, we do need to have a vision moving forward and believe in what we're doing. So thank you. You said it very well.
Anyone else?
Oh, yes. I just also like to add, first of all, I'd like to take the time to thank everybody who, played a pivotal part in, helping to, move us forward to where we are. I do understand that there's a lot of reserve, a lot of questions. We've spoken with administration. Thank you, Bob Powell, and, to our redevelopment attorney, John Porcino, and Jillian for these, I'll call them grueling last couple of weeks in trying to, figure out what was going to be the best move going forward with this project. And the rise of, having to make all these financial adjustments and perceptions in terms of COVID. But I would like to say that I do think that it's a good project for the town of Morristown, and it's something that is needed under our current financial situation faced by not only Morristown, but many other communities. I am comfortable moving forward with the project at this time,
And I'm thankful that, we have, the opportunity to continue to make the terms, better, so that we can just make sure that, our decisions are going to be reflective of what we all as a governing body feel is going to be the best decision being made for the town of Morristown and our residents in the business community. So thank you again to everybody who has spent, a lot of diligent hours and time. Bob, you said it best. We learned, a lot more than what I did just by, the information that had been provided when we had our session to go over, all of the details of the pilot and the RABs and everything. And so I was glad to be in session with you, and I was glad to take note that that Bob Powell, also, put some very kind words in terms of how our governing body has really taken, this project on and has been really diligent in reading and deciphering through all of the material. And so that was kind of helpful to me in terms of, where we were versus where we are. At the end of the day, we'd have to make the decision that's going to, be more suitable or best suitable for the future of Morristown. And so, I would be comfortable in moving forward and continuing to make the terms better to the extent that we can.
All right. Anyone else?
Yes, I would also like to echo the sentiment of the council with Jillian and John and Bob Powell. I want to thank you for patiently, walking me through this. With the questions that we came with when I met with Sandy and Stefan, and I just feel better because I did have questions about the RAB. That was something I wasn't familiar with. And, I want the residents to know that this was not taken lightly. I feel like some of my council have already said a lot, and but I just don't want to miss this opportunity of really thanking everyone for the effort they put into this, and just being patient and understanding that there are a lot of questions and that we really wanted to do what was best for our taxpayers to make sure there's no burden that falls on them. So thank you.
All right. If that's it, call the question, Margot.
On the introduction of ordinance number O-32-2020, excuse me, Councilwoman Cotton.
Yes.
Councilman Elms.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster.
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone.
You're muted, Bob.
No.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
And Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance O-32-2020 has been properly introduced by title, excuse me, and will be considered further after public hearing on October 13th. Ordinance.
Council members, I want to thank you for your comments and your action tonight. Councilman Armington, I do want to, before we move on, respond to a comment you made about 30 years from now, the building 2 not being competitive with respect to taxes. That's not going to happen. Similar to a new car that is second you pull it off the lot, the mortgage is higher. The reality is that over the process of time, the building, and by the end of the pilot period, we expect that the assessment and the taxes would be competitive with the region, and there would be no need to perpetuate further pilot or financial considerations in the future. I'm happy to talk to you about that in more detail, but I wanted to clarify that for the public. This is a finite period of time to deal with new construction.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Hey, Council President.
Yes, sir.
I also want to thank the council for moving this forward. I'm going to leave your presence now. I have a 5-hour drive. So thank you again. Thank you, council members who moved this forward. And I look forward to working with you all for an adoption on the 13th. Thank you.
Jillian, can I ask, what information is going to be available for the public? Because we have 2 weeks now. And, you know, I'd like to get more input from the public and an opportunity for them. The presentation was very, very good. But what other detail becomes available for the public before October 2nd?
The introduction, or excuse me, the public hearing and vote for this ordinance would be on October 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And documents will be available 7 days before, which is October 7th, 6th. And they will be available for inspection in the clerk's office at that time. Until that time, we'll still be working to finalize those documents, and they'll be circulated internally as drafts. We will post the presentation that we went through tonight. We will post online. They'll include highlights of the mayor's comments as the first slide. And then, of course, the recording of this meeting, will be available online as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian.
All right. Let's move on to ordinance number 029, 2020.
An ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 30 Land Use Regulations. I have a motion to introduce.
I'll make a motion to introduce.
I'll second.
So this ordinance, for those members of the public and others, essentially addresses the council's longstanding concerns about liquor licensed areas, outdoor liquor licensed areas, and the concern that we had with putting conditions on liquor license expansions relative to time of closure. So this essentially would do it through zoning, which is what has been advised by the courts. Mr. Poor, if there's anything else you want to advise.
No, I'll defer to Joni.
Okay. Oh, good. To Joni.
Yeah, no, we don't have anything else to say other than the fact that I would just point out that in the ordinance, the only sections that we're actually amending is in the first part in A is just number 5. Numbers 1 through 4 are already in the current code. And then in section B, where it's dealing with the nightclubs and bars, it's only section 9 that's being added. 1 through 8 already exists in the current code. So it's strictly the language about the closing time for the outside areas.
Mr. Joni, Mr. Delaney made a comment during the public hearing about the terminology relative to the inside versus the outside.
Yes, I think he was talking about in section 2:1. I think because they were thinking all of these restrictions related to outside areas, that should have said outside the establishment, not within the establishment, but actually 1, 2, 3, and 4, or 1 was really talking about the actual tables and chairs within the establishment itself.
Okay, sounds good. I want to be sure. All right. If there's if there's no other questions, I'll call the question.
Question, Stefan?
Yes.
It's actually, I just want to confirm, because I had some conversations with some other people, that the noise standard was not necessary because the DEP noise standards do apply to these properties, specifically as to the extended areas, which are now in the outdoor areas. Joni?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, call the question.
On the introduction of ordinance O-29-2020, Councilwoman Cotton.
Yes.
Councilman Elms.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster.
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance 29-2020 has been properly introduced by title. The public hearing is tentatively scheduled for October 13th after a planning board consistency review on September 24th. Ordinance O-30-2020, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 6, Alcoholic Beverage Control, to include a section entitled Operating Hours of Outside Areas. May I have a motion to introduce?
I'll make a motion to introduce.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? On the introduction of O-30-2020, Councilwoman Cotton,
Yes.
Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster,
Yes.
Councilman Iannacone,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mayer,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance 30-2020 has been properly introduced by title and will be considered further after public hearing on October 13th. Ordinance number O-31-2020, ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 2, Administration, to add a new Section 91 entitled Redevelopment Pay-to-Play Reform Ordinance.
I'll make a motion to adopt O-31-2020.
I'll second.
To introduce, Kay?
So just a comment here. As I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago, last winter, we created a council committee to review the existing, or the sufficiency of the existing pay-to-play regulations. This one in particular seemed relevant because of all the work that we do in town with redevelopment. It is particularly, its timing is particularly important to me. When I was running for re-election last October, going door to door, there were several residents who expressed concern, essentially challenging my integrity, suggesting that I was selling out the town and receiving kickbacks from developers. And so I felt, and I continue to feel, that this ordinance, which essentially restricts any campaign contributions from developers between the times when areas are designated in need of redevelopment and the execution of the agreement and the performance of a project is critical to maintaining the public trust. It is especially important in where public redevelopment occurs in accordance with the redevelopment housing law. In such cases, council members, elected officials are negotiating with developers. We're approving redevelopment plans which have the potential to increase development densities. We are selecting developers to be the town's developer through non-competitive bidding processes. We are voting on tax abatement policies and sometimes favorable redevelopment agreement terms. And so I feel that, and the council committee all feel as a whole, that this ordinance is the best thing for Morristown. None of us believe that through any of the redevelopment projects that this administration and the council have done, that there has been any conflict of interest, any favoritism, but we believe that adopting this ordinance will help enhance and preserve the public trust and the public, the integrity of all elected officials now and into the future. So I hope the council can support this ordinance.
No, Stefan, Toshiba and I served with you on that subcommittee. I'm going to vote for this ordinance, and I think it's a good step, but I don't think it's the final step. There's two provisions in this ordinance that I'm not totally satisfied with, and I'm the first to admit it. The first is 2-91.3, which exempts contributions or agreements made by a developer prior to the effective date of this ordinance. Okay. Quite frankly, I think that's a cop-out. I think that basically we should be accountable for any contributions we take in any of our campaigns. The second thing I'm not totally is the get out of jail free card, which is section 2-91.6, which basically says that a violation within 30 days, a violation can be basically cured by giving back the money within 30 days of the publishing of the ELEC report with the return of the funds. Again, if you're running for political office, you should know what you're doing and the ramifications of what you're doing. And that being the case, I don't see the necessity of a retribution and a forgiveness, so to speak, on these matters. And I don't think we're done with pay to play. This goes beyond this ordinance. I think the remaining hole that we have is actually with our consultants, professionals, attorneys, and other people that we hire to assist us in our deliberations. Quite often, you see some of those individuals representing developers or applicants in other municipalities are being paid. I think we have to have a little bit more scrutiny that when we hire our professionals, that we're aware of other people they're representing and the possible conflicts of representing them in other forms in other municipalities, what effect that may have on their deliberations, their work, and the way they position the information that they're giving us. And I still think that that's another issue that in the future we need to address.
Thank you, Bob. If there are no other questions or comments on this ordinance, please call the question.
On the introduction of ordinance 0-31-2020, Councilwoman Cotton.
Yes.
Councilman Elms.
Yes.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilwoman Foster.
Yes.
Councilman Iannacone.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mayer. Councilwoman Mayer.
I can't hear you. Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance 31-2020 has been introduced properly by title and will be considered further after a public hearing on October 13th. We have one ordinance for public adoption this evening, ordinance number 0-28-2020, ordinance providing for certain capital improvements at the Morristown Municipal Airport by the town of County of Morris, State of New Jersey, and appropriating $590,000 therefore to finance part of the cost thereof.
I'll make the motion to adopt ordinance 0-28-2020.
I'll second.
I will now open the floor for a public hearing on ordinance number 0-28-2020. Please be reminded that you must raise your hand in the app or press *9 on your phone to indicate if you'd like to speak. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Council President, I don't see any hands raised for public hearing.
Close the public hearing.
Any comments or questions from council?
I have been voting no on these Morristown Airport ordinances and resolutions. My concern remains whether or not we have the ability to challenge the ridiculously low rent paid by the operator of this, which is in reality a corporate international airport, as provided in the lease that was signed years ago, back when this airport was characterized as a weekend recreational small plane flyer airport. The administration was good enough a couple of weeks ago to give us a copy of the lease. We're going to read it. I'm going to read it with a few of our other council members. We'll seek the counsel of Jody and Veej, but I think we need to take a serious look at this. That we are being paid a ridiculously low amount of money for an airport that has developed over the last 30 years into an international corporate jet port. International flights are flying in and out of there. And the revenue associated with it has to be much, much, much different than it was in the past. And if we have an opportunity to get some equity in this transaction, I think we have to exercise it.
Thank you, Bob. Call the question?
On the adoption of ordinance O-28-2020, Councilwoman Cotton,
Yes.
Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster,
Yes.
Councilman Iannacone,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance 28-2020 is adopted. Excuse me, there are 9 resolutions on the agenda for adoption. Unless a member of council would like to pull one or more for separate consideration, I would ask for a motion to approve 142-2020 through 150-2020 en masse.
We pull 142?
I'm sorry, what number?
142.
Okay.
And Margot, can you pull 149, please?
Any others?
Just confirming that 128 was tabled.
That's correct. 128 was tabled to October 13th. So I would ask for a motion to approve resolutions 143-2020 through 148-2020 en masse.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Councilor
Just one comment. We received a letter from the police or I'm taking from Jillian through the police department discussing the quality of life efforts that have been made over the last year in the vicinity of many of the downtown bars and restaurants. Jillian, can you just rehash what that letter essentially discussed, because it applies indirectly to the restaurants and bars. So
I will, Councilman, and I apologize, I don't have a letter in front of me to speak to specifics, but I will say generally, we have spent a lot of time, certainly pre-COVID, the police department has focused on quality of life issues in and around our downtown, and that resulted in a significant increase in the number of summonses that were issued for quality of life violations, specific around public urination and drunkenness. There have been others sort of related in and around downtown. While in most cases, it's difficult to tie any of that activity to a specific bar location. You know, I think it's still reasonable to draw the connection between this type of activity and the alcohol establishments that are in the vicinity. And we know that we've gotten a lot of comments and feedback from residents who live in and near downtown about this activity, which is why the police department and public safety director have focused their activities on addressing these issues. And, you know, again, pre-COVID, you know, due to their efforts, there was a market reduction in the types of violations that we saw, although we will obviously continue our efforts to make sure that we address those things. I think there were over 250 summonses that were issued by December of last year that address those types of violations, which I think, while they're not specifically tied to individual liquor license establishments, I think it's important for this body to understand, you know, what the sort of collective result of some of these establishments and the behavior of some of their customers has resulted in, but that we are actively engaged in reducing that activity and putting the word out to the people that want to come to Morristown and enjoy our nightlife, that we will not tolerate that type of behavior, and we will continue to put pressure on, you know, those people who, you know, don't want to you know, that you know, want to exhibit that type of behavior that's not acceptable. We want to encourage people to come to our town. We want to encourage our restaurants and liquor establishments to be successful, but they also have to respect our town and do it in a way that makes them good neighbors, and you know, that doesn't result in you know, various bodily fluids on the sidewalk, for example. And I want to commend our police department for their efforts through the end of last year, and look forward to continuing to work with them to continuing our enforcement efforts as you know, we sort of come out of this COVID environment, and as you know, we see additional activity at the bars and restaurants through our downtown. I expect that going into next year, as we go into renewals, we will continue to provide this information to the council, and to the extent that we do have specific information and can solicit specific information about how this activity ties directly to individual establishments, we will make sure to convey that to you as you deliberate on renewals, you know, in the coming year and into the future.
Thank you, Jillian.
And I have to say it every time. Thank you, Donna Gaffney.
Call the question, please.
Okay, on the adoption of resolutions 143 through 148 and 150, 2020, Councilwoman Cotton.
Yes.
Councilman Elms.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster.
Yes.
Councilman Iannacone.
Yes.
Councilman Mayer.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution R-142-2020, resolution authorizing execution of lease agreement with Scotto Properties for lease of town hall parking spaces. May I have a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion to adopt 142-2020.
I'll second.
Thank you. Councilman?
Just, Jillian, question. Only one bidder?
Yes, so these are the parking spaces that are in the back, I'm directionally challenged, but the back corner of the parking lot adjacent to the property that's owned by Scotto's. It's the Medical Arts building that faces Elm Street, that sort of gray strip building. These spaces have been leased by tenants in that building for several years. This lease, you know, was held by the prior owners of that building before Scotto's bought it a couple of years ago. You may recall that, you know, a few years ago when the ownership changed, we did another bid to change the lease to renew the ownership name. The lease gets renewed every couple of years, but we only received one bid, you know, this round. I do suspect that, you know, had we not been in a COVID environment, that there would be more demand for parking in that area. I know that last year there was another commercial tenant nearby that had expressed interest in the spaces that, and at the time they weren't available. But of course now everyone's working remotely, so that demand is less. You know, in fact, this lease had, and the prior lease had been for 60 spaces. Scotto's only asked for 35 this time because the tenants are not, the demand for the parking spaces is not what it's been in the prior years. So this is what we have before us, and we want to lock in the lease payments, at least for where we are now. I do expect demand to rebound, and we may, at that time when demand increases, we'll put out another auction for the remainder spaces.
Two questions, Jillian. Is it annual?
It's every 2 years.
Every 2 years? And second question, what's the number of spaces we lease out in that lot during the day and during the night separately?
These spaces are only leased during the day, during the week. I believe it's from 9 to 6 p.m.
How many?
Sorry, hold on. It's from 9 to 6 p.m. We typically offer up to 80 spaces for lease, and I think they only have taken 60 in the past. This time they took 35.
And it's only during the day, not at night.
Correct. It's only until 6 o'clock. They're available at night.
Thank you.
All right, call the question, please.
On the adoption of resolution R-2020, Councilwoman Cotton.
Yes.
Councilman Elms.
Yes.
Councilman Foster.
Yes.
Councilman Iannacone.
Yes.
Councilman Mayer.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution R-149-2020, resolution authorizing the execution of an exclusive leasing list. Let me start over, please. Resolution authorizing the execution of an exclusive leasing listing agreement with Godby Realtors. May I have a motion to adopt, please?
I'll make a motion to adopt R-149-2020.
I'll second.
Councilman Elms?
I just have a comment regarding this. I think first I'll mention I absolutely have no issue whatsoever with Godby Realtors. I'm a good friend of Kit Godby. I have great respect for her, but I would say that the last broker we hired put a big for rent sign or for lease sign out in front of Town Hall, and I thought it looked terrible, to be quite honest. And I actually got quite a bit of comments and emails and calls from residents. So I have no opposition, of course, to giving the exclusive listing to Godby Realtors, but I think we should consider not allowing a sign to go out in front of Town Hall. I just don't think it's a good look.
Agree.
I agree. I didn't like the whole, the penthouse was available for.
Right. Yeah, I think the last broker was it Kislak or something like that? So
That was the last broker, correct?
yeah.
I appreciate your feedback, Councilman. I will say that the prior broker had a specific marketing plan and philosophy in mind. My understanding of their sort of leaning is they tend to do certain types of office space. I understand your objections to the sign and will relay that to our broker if you choose to move forward with this agreement.
Okay, will that be part of the agreement?
I don't know. I mean, that's up to you. I think we can, in our relationship with them, we just will not allow the sign. They can't put up a sign unless I give them permission, and I will not give permission.
Very good. Thank you.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, on the adoption of resolution R-149-2020, Councilwoman Cotton?
Yes.
Councilman Elms?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster?
Yes.
Councilman Iannacone?
Yes.
Councilman Mayor?
Yes.
Councilman Silva?
Yes.
Council President Armington?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, there's no unfinished business. New business, there's a vacancy at the Morristown Housing Authority Commission. We please advise all your residents of the opening. It is a term ending September 5th, 2025. So it's basically a new position. Margot, that opening will vacant. It'll be open for 30 days starting today.
It's actually been posted.
Okay.
The 30-day posting requirement ends on October 9th.
Okay.
However, you can extend the application timeframe if you wish.
Well, let's reach out to me by October 9th, and we'll see what applications we have before us, and then we can advise the council accordingly to reach out to those applicants and see if we want to nominate someone.
Well, I just have a quick question. So has the vacancy been posted, on the town website and, okay.
Yes.
So, all right. So I would just encourage all of the council members to, put the information out there that, we do have this vacancy. I know in the past, we've only gotten a handful of resumes of persons of interest for the seat. But, I think it's time that we kind of expand our search and, kind of just really do a push to put it out there that this vacancy is open and, see if we can get a good pool of candidates going forward.
Margot, is this position limited to a resident or any type of, any limitation on the position qualifications?
No, the only the only stipulation that is that this particular vacancy is a council appointment. There is a second vacancy, same term, that is the mayor's appointment.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, with that, there's no more business. Motion to adjourn, unless there's anything else from council.
Happy birthday, Toshiba.
Oh, thank you. I'll second. On that note, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank
Good job.
you.
Have a great night.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Night, all.
Good
Everyone.
seeing you. Good seeing you for the marathon.
All right.
Happening, I can't get out.
You have to end the meeting, Margo.
Oh, that's usually your job, but I came too early. And
Good
meeting.
night.